pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, as you may notice, we're a little short on board members tonight. I have an addition into the agenda that, due to the nature of the timing of it, we weren't able to put on the agenda. But we received a letter from Member Banks on her submitting her resignation for personal health reasons. I'm saddened to have her go. I enjoyed working with her. Since prior to the election, I got to spend quite a bit of time with her, talking with her about different school issues, and we're certainly going to miss her contribution to the board. But as I spoke with her earlier today, just because she's not sitting on the board doesn't mean she can't vocalize her opinions to us. And yeah, thanks to the online feed, which she was so instrumental in getting for us, she said she will be watching us at home. So, thanks, Vicki. That does bring up a couple of additional issues. Most immediately, because Vicki was our secretary, we have to have a secretary for our board. So we need to fill that spot. So I'm going to ask for nominations for board secretary, if anybody has it.
I nominate Maury Lyons. You don't need a second, you just need to know everybody else's nomination.
Okay. Anybody else interested?
By acclamation, Maury is the second.
By acclamation, then the board will accept. He's the next
Doubles my pay,
secretary.
right?
Yes. I
Great.
guarantee that. Okay.
Which is zero for people out there that are wondering.
All right. They knew.
Somebody out there is not going to.
Okay. And with Vicki's resignation, we also need to appoint a new board member, and there is a process for that. And I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Asplund to explain.
Thank you, Rod. The law has changed just in the last few months on that. It used to be 60 days that a board had to fill a vacancy. Now it's 90 days. Not that we want to take all that time, but we do have 90 days to fill it. So the last time that we had a vacancy, which wasn't very long ago, it was from the other side of the equation for what I'm going to talk about now. So within our school district, 4 people have to live within Galesburg Township, the other 3 have to live without. So last time we had to fill somebody from without, this time we have to fill from within. So if somebody is interested in being, and we're going to put something out either tonight or tomorrow about this, but if somebody's interested in being a member of the board for the unexpired term, a member Banks term, so it would be up in 2 years, that person can send their resume to me, and then we'll have to hold a special board meeting. And I believe, Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, we'd already decided it was the 20, it was a Friday. You're chewing on something right now.
I know,
Give me a
sorry.
second.
I didn't think I had to talk for a while.
Sorry about that. I believe it was the 30th. Is that right?
Deadline?
Yeah, I believe we said we were gonna have to be the 30th, is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, the 30th to try, it was a Friday, I know that. To submit their resignation, to submit their information. And then we would have to hold a special board meeting. We don't have to. The board has broad authority to do what it wishes to do. So it can look at the people that were in there and pick somebody not even on the list, or it can pick somebody from the list, or whatever they want to do. So the board just has to find somebody that lives within Galesburg Township that is a legally registered voter, and somebody who is, so I guess is 18, and they used to have to be legally registered to do that. So that person would have a 2-year term essentially. So that's it. So we have until 90 days from date of receipt of the resignation, so that was the 8th of August.
Yes.
And I've already informed the ROE because we have that
Right.
obligation as well.
Okay. We'll move on to the next point, recognition of visitors. Do we have any?
We do not.
And the next point is presentations to the board. We have a summer school presentation. Mr. Bradburn? Okay.
You want me to do it?
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
please.
So at our board retreat, you guys can keep coming, or you guys keep coming up, sorry. At our board retreat last week, we decided we needed to do a better job of holding people to the time limits we're supposed to hold people to. So you only have 10 minutes. So.
And they knew this, right?
Yes. Well, at least John did, whether he passed that on to you, ladies.
Oh, I passed it on. I passed it on.
Disavow any of that communication. But yeah, no, they are aware. So you have 10 minutes and I will keep track here, so make sure that we stay on and true to that.
Okay. And
Yeah, go.
all right, good evening. It's a real honor to be able to share the program with you at the board's request. It will be brief. I have brought some teachers tonight that helped out with the program, Mrs. Warnzing, Mrs. Golden, Mrs. Cooper. We're going to go through this very quickly and kind of give you an overview of what I feel was a really successful program for our first year. I think we learned a lot about some things of going into creating the program. Obviously, we've got some things that we'd like to change, and there'll be some recommendations at the end. First, to start off with, this is different with the PowerPoint. I'd like to recognize, obviously, the people that made this happen were the staff. So I listed their names up there. We had a lot of people up there to help us with reading and math from the district. Our STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math program in the afternoon was very successful, and the people that worked every day in the program made it that way. So I want to thank them for their efforts. It was great working with them. Overview of the program, very quickly, was a K-12 program. We did reading with nonfiction reading from the American Reading Company, kindergarten through 8th grade. Math was featured the iMath, featuring iReady online curriculum and diagnostic. High school, we did credit recovery. I've got some data for you on all of this. And then we did a STEM program in the afternoon from 1 to 4. The morning academic program, as you remember, was from 9 to noon. And then the afternoon program was from 1 to 4. With the topics at the bottom, you can see there. I have to tell you a quick story about the forensics. People really, the teachers that did the forensics unit set up, we bought kits for the forensics unit so that they could set up investigations, and some of the teachers just really went above and beyond. And there was one kindergarten forensic unit that involved a teddy bear who was guilty of stealing some cookies. Spoiler alert, but the teddy bear did it. And it was neat, but they set up footprints and evidence, and the kindergartners were all over the building looking at this. It was a blast to watch, so I appreciate that. And all the teachers went above and beyond on this. Here's our enrollment. We started off all in on the 10th of June with 296 students, and we did drop off quite a bit as the summer went on. That's something we learned about, that our attendance. And specifically after July 4th, the attendance really kind of fell off. It was kind of like, okay, 4 weeks, and then people just decided that they were done, unfortunately.
It dropped off 50 before July 4th.
Yeah, we dropped off a lot. Yep.
Oh, it's all
Yeah, we lost. Yep.
Some grades are better than others, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, we noticed that, and that was like 4th grade kind of really held steady. Kindergarten really held kind of steady. 1st grade, but then we had other grades that did drop off. We even noticed a drop off in STEM. The STEM, I think, one of the things we learned, and this will be a recommendation we talked about at the end of the presentation. 1 to 3 for our little ones was a little too long, or 1 to 4. So one of our recommendations was to reduce that a little bit. Kindergarten reading. This was with the American Reading Company, and they did the 9th grade levels did nonfiction reading and research. Our data on this is more qualitative than quantitative. I do have some quantitative information from Ames Web, which we piloted. We did a benchmark, and we did some progress monitoring. We learned a lot about implementing that for next year to get some data. But the students were able to able to figure out their reading level, and then they were able to read nonfiction books on this topic at their grade level. And then they also wrote books and shared their books. So they researched a topic, and they not only did the nonfiction reading, but they did nonfiction writing.
Fantastic quality writing from 1st and 2nd graders. It really was impressive to see the progress that they made in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that was really fun. And it was really fun to watch them share their stories and continue to research. They illustrated it,
found the facts, and they were very, very proud of their books. So it was fun, and I got to hear some of the kids read their books to me, which is an added benefit. I really appreciated that. Okay. Math overview, I'm going to let Mrs. Warnzing, Mrs. Golden talk about that for a little bit, because that was an exciting part of our summer program as well.
We got the pleasure of using iReady Math, which is an excellent tool for a classroom teacher. The thing that really drew me in, that had me kind of excited to come every day, was the children work on their own level after taking a diagnostic, and then if the kids have problem areas, or if they don't pass an area 2 times, it locks them out. Then the teacher goes to that student and then problem solves with the student to see where the missing learning is, or see where the piece is that needs to be filled in. I had 2 significant occasions. One was a student really had interrupted sense of counting by tens. About 6 minutes of counting by tens in different ways and using different manipulatives, and boom, it's gone. The kid moved on, and he moved on like 6 areas in that week alone because we fixed that. The other area that kind of came up, a kid kept getting locked out, and it was counting items from 1 to 20. And this is a really bright kid, and I was really puzzled, and I was, like, what's going on? And he's like, well, when they're in lines, I can do that. When it's in a circle, I can do that. When they're scattered all over, I can't do that. I don't know what I've counted. Well, he didn't realize as a feature of the software that he could actually touch the screen and mark the items that he'd had. So that immediately is a fix. He moves on 5, 6, 7 areas in math. The kids liked it. It was engaging. It gave real-time information. I knew exactly where I needed to put the instruction. Knew exactly what I needed to teach. It was, I felt like it was an excellent opportunity to teach.
As well did I. One thing I really liked from the iReady diagnostic is it broke math into 4 areas, tying with Common Core standards. And those 4 areas, each student received a grade level for, not just a number for their score, but a grade level. And I had some students who were literally, yes, I taught 4th grade, but I had some that were 1st grade in one area, 2nd grade in another, 3rd grade in another, 4th grade in another. So it really told me what they needed to work on, what to focus on, and then the lessons automatically tailored to that. But if geometry was their weakest area, then I could do measurement activities, or vice versa. Whatever they needed, I could tailor my activities toward that with the data that it gave me.
And then I had a conversation with the technical support as we were going through the pilot, and they were going over some reports. What they noticed is, and they commented, was that typically they measure growth in this program on a whole year process. And this was a summer session, and so it was condensed. But they basically said that our program made in 6 weeks, a little bit less than 6 weeks, what normally schools make in 9. Now this is not a trend, it's our first year, but it shows that by targeting the instruction, we were able to grow kids, we were able to accelerate some learning. I'd like to see what we keep doing and see if we can get more of the information. Here was a comparison between the beginning of the session and the end, and basically we moved from 12, the red is 2 grade levels behind, we reduced that by 4%. The 1 grade level behind was reduced from 4%, and then also we did a big 9% increase in people moving up to grade level. So that was important. We used Ames Web. This is something we piloted. We were learning how to use it. We did a benchmark. We'd like to be able to do 2 benchmarks, so we're going to had to do some progress monitoring to see that some growth. We did see some kids make some gains in this program. I'd like to have Ms. Cooper talk about credit recovery.
John, excuse me, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are you considering, this is the same product that's used in the school? It's not the same product.
No, this is brand new.
So we can't do a benchmark in September to see what kind of regression there's been?
No, currently no. But we would like to be able to do something like that. Well, Ames Web we looked at also, having maybe at the end of a benchmark in spring, and then doing a benchmark at the end of the summer session, so we can make a comparison.
Edgenuity is the program we're using for credit recovery. Students were eligible to take the course either in the morning or in the afternoon. We had 2 teachers for each session. Initially, there were 92 students enrolled, and we did lose 22 of them, 18 due to attendance. They weren't attending. They signed up but didn't attend. So we serviced 70 students through the summer. Through that total of 82 classes were completed with 59 students, so it was 41 credits were issued over the summer. So 38 students completed one course, so 54% of them were on track to complete at least one. And others went beyond that. 27%, 19 of them completed 2 courses, and 3% of them completed 3 courses. We had a few that, even though they were attending, may not have utilized time wisely and did not complete any courses, but it was only 16%. So maybe next year looking at how we can target those students and give them a little more for time management.
But it was nice to get 82 classes made up over the summer and get that credit recovered. As we close, recommendations for next year, we'd like to reduce the STEM to 2 hours, 1 to 3. I'd like to give, on the credit recovery, I'd like to give 2-week completion deadlines for students to keep them on track, because they always think I have plenty of time. And that's a recommendation that came from the teachers. They said we need to give them two-week benchmarks. You need to be this far to get, and we would have gotten more credit recovery. I'm happy with what we did, but I think given that we can do better. We'd like to have a little bit of a gap for planning and training between the close of the school year and the beginning of summer school.
Will you be in charge of the weather, John?
Yeah, I'd like to see if I could do that. No,
We put a request into Mother Nature.
And just to close, there was a lot of things that are not measurable, but just the relationship with the kids. And we knew that we had kids coming hungry, and it was nice to be able to feed them. We started the breakfast program a week into the program. That was needed. We fed between 50 and 70 kids every morning breakfast. We fed around 130 kids lunch every day.
And this may be something that would normally go unmentioned, but the ladies that came in for the lunch and the breakfast got to know the kids' names, got to know the kids' interests. They invested in those kids even though it was just 6 weeks. They did, and it meant the world to them that those ladies knew who they were when they came in. Those ladies really did a great job as well. It was a fabulous team top to bottom.
I want to thank the teachers again for coming and helping out. Appreciate that. I think we're out of time, and with that, I think we'll take your questions.
Well, you keep the weather down this year, John.
Yes, sir.
Glad you're taking
Yes,
the
sir. I'd
lead
like to
on
do
that.
that. Okay. Thank you.
For the credit recovery, how many classes were each of the students expected to complete?
Great question. We had set up, definitely there was going to be enough time for them to get one class. Typically, when we went through the training with Edgenuity, they figured 45 hours was enough to complete one credit recovery class. And so the summer session was set up for 69 possible contact hours. So that they could work outside of home, and some of the kids did. You can see that because they had access to it outside of the regular school day, summer school day. Kids who were motivated, they really made gains. It's a good program because you cannot skip ahead. It does not let you. We were really happy with that.
Is that the same one we used during the school year?
We just started last year, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. I get a motion. So moved. Anybody have any questions or concerns about the consent agenda?
Helps.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Sharpie.
Yes.
Lyon.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is focus area 1, relevant skills that lead to employability. The administrative report on curriculum.
Good evening. We've been very, very busy the last couple weeks. We've got the writing rubric and public speaking rubric rollouts ready to go for the ASU. Instructional coaches have been working on those presentations to make sure that they're ready for staff. We also were able to employ our gifted and talented process this summer with a few students who wanted to possibly be accelerated or placed in a new grade level. The whole team that was part of that process actually was very pleased by the results. We actually were able to see the whole picture of the whole child, from motivation to social emotional to just their overall abilities cognitively and achievement. And we were able to have all that information to make a quality decision. So I feel like we're on the right path there. We also have a multi-tiered system of support, which is MTSS. We also met on July 31st. Our team collaborated, and we have a flow chart for teachers, partly because it has been, over the last couple of years, kind of these tangent pieces that really don't make a lot of sense together. So we tried to clear that up so the teachers have more of a concrete path to follow in regards to interventions and enrichment for students in the core subject areas. We also are working on a 9th through 12th grade plan. Ms. Ritchie and I are going to meet in addition to some other teachers. She's also going to have a couple sessions during the Institute to get some feedback from the high school staff on how they feel that that would be best implemented, or how we can provide some interventions during that time. And then we have Ames Web Plus, so to kind of piggyback on Mr. Bradburn's earlier presentation, we are using Ames Web Plus this year as another means of assessment to see if that gives us better information. Plus, we do not have a progress monitoring tool, which is a requirement of the MTSS process. We used to have achievement series through Scantron. That was not meeting our district needs. And it was very clunky for teachers. I don't know if any of the administrators in the audience would probably agree with that. There were just a lot of clicks to get to the real meat of what you need to do. Ames Web is I think it's a lot easier for teachers, and it provides a lot of informative information regarding your instruction and how to meet students' needs. We are going to have a training.
We previously used Ames Web at some point.
This is
Yeah, I would say 3 years ago. Ames Web 1.0, this is Ames Web Plus, it's a newer version.
Right.
Why was it dropped initially?
Because the district chose to have a benchmarking tool, a larger benchmarking tool that was adaptive, and so they went.
Yeah, the district chose to go with a suite of products that Scantron gave, feedback we received from teachers, and I certainly agree with them that the Scantron series that was the equivalent to Ames Web was very time-consuming and difficult to maneuver. And if you're a grade school teacher sitting in a classroom with 25 kids and hold on, I gotta click 14 different times and set up this program that's gonna take 3 minutes. I mean, it just really wasn't an effective use of a teacher's time. And that was pretty consistent feedback we got from the teachers. So we felt like that was a bad course of action at this point to continue on it. So we're looking at Ames Web 2.0, Ames Web Plus, which is in my opinion, superior product. Ames Web 1.0 gives you a lot quicker feedback. It's instantaneous, and it's done on the computer, but the student isn't on the computer. So you can get very quick feedback, and you can do your benchmarking very easily as a paraprofessional or a teacher that's doing those interventions, and they're there waiting for you to do them rather than having to click through many different clicks to do it. So we feel like it's a positive change to go look at that as a pilot, and we feel very strongly that people will like it.
The K-1 portion is based on the stimulus, so number line, the teacher will have that, or the paraprofessional will have that stimulus, and then the student responds accordingly versus utilizing the computer for assessment. Grades 2 through 12 actually do take it on a computer, and so that information is available there. District improvement teams, we had that, last year was our first year of having the district improvement team meetings. We have now scheduled 3 based on the feedback and kind of just our consensus after last year, feeling that September was a good time to start out the year, express our goals for our buildings, and then we can have a midpoint check, and then at the end of the year, how did things go, information session. So our information to our large team, our community members and such will go out this week. Instructional coaching rollout will take place during the Teachers Institute on the 14th and 15th. So in regards to Member Sherpy's questions, I believe last month, about how that was going to take place, we have a variety of things. We even created our own video from the instructional coaches, but we also talked about the purpose of coaching, what coaching is not, how to access a coach, how to enroll. We have all of those pieces together in an informative video for teachers to access, and we will also present that at the rollout. Summer school, like Mr. Bradburn said, I feel like it was successful. It was a start to just kind of a new process and a new way of doing things. I'm excited about next year. New teacher orientation just took place on Thursday and Friday, the 8th and the 9th. I shared the agenda there with you so you could see that. 92.7% of the attendees that took the survey, which 41 took the survey, felt that was very valuable for them. And so that was good feedback for us. There were some suggestions. I had them write some anecdotal suggestions as well to kind of identify. I felt from the presentation that it would have been nice to have maybe kindergarten and 5th grade, maybe in some separate sessions for some certain things. But that's That's for us to decide over the course of this year, because obviously the needs for 6-12 are different than those for K-5, but we got a lot of really positive feedback. We are piloting Amplify Science in the junior high this year, which is a continuation of our K-5 district adoption, which starts this year. We will also have a math pilot K through 8, piggybacking off of the summer school program. It is the Ready Math, and then it also includes an iReady component, which is that individual learning path that Mrs. Warrenstein was referring to. We have 16 elementary teachers and 6 middle school teachers piloting the Ready Math program at this time. We had equity leadership training by Dr. Paul Gorski. He's one of the authorities on equity, inclusivity, and diversity right now, and he was able to come here and start kind of our equity leadership process. We're going to develop a equity plan over the course of this school year. And plans are underway for the 2019 Teacher Institute. Schedules have been released to people so they are aware of where they're going and what's taking place on those days. Questions for me?
You talk about these areas that we're piloting curriculum. Oh, I'm sorry. And it just, I was talking to a teacher recently, and she said that we don't have materials in many areas, and teachers are responsible for putting together their own curriculum, like for social studies and...
Not their own curriculum.
Not their own curriculum. They have to find their own materials. Is that the best use of everyone's time, to go out and find things?
No, we don't believe that it is, and that's why we're trying to
This is why I am
find the
piloting.
material.
Because while we have a curriculum, and a quarterly plan that identifies those skills that we need to teach by quarter, I want them to scaffold. As you know, math, if we don't scaffold that appropriately, students are going to miss components that are vitally important as they build on those. So that's why the math, and I would say the summer school teachers I didn't have a single person to do that said, wow. I mean, they were very, very pleased by the summer school pilot, and they were gracious enough to extend that to us this school year, to use it all year long for the 16 elementary teachers and 6 middle school teachers. I can only imagine the growth that we'll see over 4 quarters that we did just in 6 with 4-day weeks.
And last question, I'm probably the only person who doesn't know what this means. Who's the leadership team? And they did training when Paul Gorski came in?
So I have the instructional coaches as part of that.
Okay.
I have members of the community, Dr. David Amore, and then I also have members from Knox College. I have Deb Moreno, I'm trying to think who else. Devon Urals. I just have a variety of community members. Tiffany Springer from the Galesburg Community Foundation. About 35 members on that team. The goal is to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community, right, and the students that we're serving. And so we need to be mindful of all the opportunities we're providing students. And are we creating situations where there aren't equitable opportunities for all students? We would never want to put ourselves in that way, or in that position. But I also think you don't know what you don't know. So if we're not mindful of those pieces, we can't create those equitable opportunities. So that's our goal.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Yep.
Next report, the special education report.
Special ed has been working long hours to bring in staff. We have all our teacher positions filled but one, and we have a backup plan to start the year without that teacher. We only have 20 students in that program, so we can split into 2 classrooms to start, continue to advertise for the position, because eventually the students will come into that ED program, the emotional disability program. But we can start with 2 legally, student number wise, and then build from there. We're down to 1 paraprofessional position open, and we have interviews we're setting up to fill that last position. So staff-wise, we're looking good. Should be ready to go when the school year starts. We trained today my support staff. They came back today, so the psychologists, the speech pathologists, the social workers, they're all kind of trained up and ready to start the year. Tomorrow we train our new staff in the Embrace IEP program, so they'll be ready to rock and roll. And then during the Institute, special ed has been given a small few-hour block, and we'll be continuing our training, and we'll be working on Next Up, which is a transition program that can be utilized K-12. So we'll be training our staff on that program so that they're ready to implement and pilot it and see where we are. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, focus area 2, facilities that assist in skill acquisition. First subject point is building studies committees. That'd be
me. I just have one update, and that is that we are now to the stage with our 7 through 12 scheduling committee that the committee membership, which is comprised of a lot of teachers, that they have recommended a schedule that's compatible with 7 through 12. The steering committee, which is comprised of some of the leadership among the GEA, has had some concerns about it. And so we felt like the membership and the leadership kind of had a different message, so we feel like now's the time that we need to get everybody together and have one large committee and have some discussion on that. So, not that Tiffany doesn't have enough to do already, so we've tasked her with making sure once school starts, she doesn't have to do it today, getting her committee together, and then our committee's a lot smaller, so it's a lot easier to find common time for us. That we are going to try to get everybody together so that we can actually start talking about these things as a comprehensive group, because we have to get to where we have a schedule that we believe in going forward, and we want to definitely honor the work that the scheduling committee has done. So at this point now, we're just trying to fine tune.
Okay, thank you. Look forward to that meeting. Moving on, update on district building projects. Ms. Ham.
Tonight, Russell's going to be talking about our bids, so I'll wait until we get to that section of the agenda. As many of you have probably noticed, the Zephyr Dome went down very quickly, and that site is all ready for repurposing for our solar panels sometime in the near future. So that's exciting. We have the new playground that is the joint venture between the city that is just about finished.
I didn't know they'd started. Last
Yeah,
time I
it's
drove
almost
by,
done.
it was.
Really?
It's almost
Almost
finished.
done.
Mhm.
Wow.
It's on the east end of the football field, and so we have some sidewalks to pour and some access points, but it's a
Good.
really, really
Looks
nice
nice.
addition to the south side. So that is almost complete. Russell will be putting up some construction fencing this week and next week. We'll be getting site work at Steele and at Lombard, so things are gonna start to pick up and progress very quickly. So really the last thing at this point in time is we're finishing up the initial designs for the kitchen project at GHS, which will be done next summer in 2020, and finishing up the King designs. And those are coming along well, too. So.
I have one other item too. I just want to make sure, I drive by it every day, and I want to make sure that we mention the fact that the trees on the berm at Silas Willard
Coming back.
were almost dead, and now we've gotten our arborist, the city's arborist came over and helped, and actually, I'll give credit where credit, no, I'm gonna say it. So, Maury's daughter, Hannah, came over and she gave us some tips as well, and we followed those, and now the trees are looking very healthy. One of them still looks a little.
But it's not dead though.
But no, it definitely looks better than it
Check it
did.
every
So
day.
those trees look fantastic now compared to where they looked, even 2 weeks ago.
And the maintenance and custodial staff in Marguerite who
Well, yes.
watered them faithfully.
They've watered them faithfully 3 times a day since,
Yes.
for the last month.
Yes.
So thank you to Mark Reed and the maintenance staff as well. So we appear at this time to have saved those trees, so that's a good thing.
Did we vote on a fence for the playground? I don't
For
know.
Lombard?
Lombard.
No, we have not.
We have to do that, Jen, right?
We do.
'Cause that's part of our responsibility.
Correct.
Right, so one of the conversations that we have to have is with the solar company, because some of that, now that the solar is stretching on the south side, so some of that will be solar fencing that'll tie into that.
Could let them pay for it.
Some of it, yes. Exactly.
Any idea on time frame for the solar panel installation? Or?
Dr. Athlon would have like.
I just got an email from them. They were giving me final drawings, which one of them has an error, so I'm going back to that. They'll be in town tomorrow to talk to me about where we are in terms of which project's going to go first. And then I'll have an update for everybody whenever I get one. But it has to be done, all projects have to be done by the end of May of 2020.
Okay,
They had a year.
Correct.
thank you. Let's see, next item is consider approval of facility use agreement with the city of Galesburg.
I'm actually going to ask Mr. Matthews to come up. He met with the city and they made 2 minor changes, and I'm gonna let him discuss those.
It's basically the same as last year, except for the 2 small changes. Both deal with our tennis programs and something I'll be working with Leanne about. One is just providing them our summer schedule a little bit earlier so they can plan their summer schedule. And then also, if we're not gonna use Lakeside for indoor practices, trying to communicate that a little bit sooner so that they can use the facility for other individuals. So that's it. Everything else is pretty much the same as last year.
Any other additional questions or comments?
I'm glad we worked together.
Something we need to approve, need a motion to approve?
Yes, you need a motion and second to approve it every year. Yes.
Need a motion to approve this?
So move.
I'll second.
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Sharpie?
Aye.
Lyon?
Yes.
Phelps?
Aye.
Next item is consider approval of Russell agreement. I need a motion and a second. Courtney?
Second.
So these agreements have been in negotiation for 3 months?
A bit.
A while, but we feel very strongly now that this is a very mutually beneficial agreement. A lot of the, I'm not gonna, I guess hang-ups is the word I'm using, which isn't, I guess, I don't know, it's an inelegant word, but initially was revolved around if Russell was going to be acting as an agent or at risk, so whether they held the bids or we did. And so where we landed was we are going to hold all the bids, we're gonna hold all the contracts, and Russell is working much like the architects as an advisor and bill us hourly. Anything pertinent I need to add to that? And that's essentially what we're talking about. So, yeah, it was a long negotiation, but not a bad one. Never ugly or anything like that. But yeah, we feel very strongly that this is a good agreement.
Any questions or concerns?
I'm glad it's 1 contract, not 3.
It's a long one.
Sharpie?
Aye.
Lyon?
Yes.
Phelps?
Aye.
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Next point on the agenda is need a motion for the consider approval of the Lombard bids.
So moved.
Second.
Comments?
Well, I kind of give you, as you may remember, we had Lombard went out to bid. We received bids in the end of July. We have pretty good coverage. Right now, the construction market is very, we're busy, and the bids reflect that. We've received bids in all categories except for 2. And one of those being flooring that will go out for rebid coinciding in September is the plan with King's bid package 1 with foundations. So we did not receive any bids for flooring for Lombard. We believe part of that might be some competition with some hospital bids in Peoria. It was kind of the feedback I got, but otherwise we had really good coverage, and we worked hard and to make sure we got coverage for everything.
Can you put the bid on the screen?
Oh.
I thought we couldn't do this as Lakeside.
And Lee, do you want to talk about that you reached out locally twice
For
to?
flooring, yeah, we reached out to local flooring vendors in Peoria and the Quad Cities. Quad Cities market really doesn't like to travel down here because the union locals change to different locals, so they don't have the same workforce. And because of the amount of work that's out there and the amount of paperwork involved with public work, some of the local flooring companies declined, said this really wasn't worth the effort and the time for administrative burden for them, so.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
Thank you for reaching out to me.
Can I have a clarification on an acronym?
Yep.
What does BIM coordination stand for?
Yeah, so good question. BIM coordination, so BIM is Building Information Modeling. If you've seen the three-dimensional images of systems being built on the computer ahead of time
Sure.
and coordinating all those systems before it's built, that's essentially what it is. We did break that out as an alternate, mainly because we didn't want to disenfranchise any smaller bidders that may not have that resource in-house. Some of the smaller bidders that don't have that have to go and solicit pricing from an engineer, an architect, or another contractor that have that capabilities. But we do find in our experience that doing that coordination ahead of time before we're in the field helps with schedule and maintaining schedule and quality of work. So we do recommend taking that alternate. And the one thing I did mention to the administration that we will work, as we have in the past on other projects, to see if there's educational opportunities to bring in your classes to, see that model or provide that model to your class as use in educational opportunities as well. So that's something we'll commit to continue to do. So.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, but we're basically talking about a three-dimensional model of what the wiring chases or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that we can actually look at it without it actually being built yet to see if there's a problem.
Yeah, so yeah, typically the architect's already designed in 3D, so this is making the contractors make sure their stuff works within that design and check, so you don't have the scenario, at the 11th hour we're putting up ductwork and it doesn't fit under a beam and now the ceilings doesn't fit. And you have to lower ceiling and compromise its design, so, or have a delay to try to rework something. So our recommendations in the letter is we went through and clarified all the apparent lows, and relative to the alternates. Alternate one was doing concrete paving instead of asphalt. At Lombard, it was cheaper to do concrete paving, is what the bids came in at. So we recommend taking that alternate. Reworking the entry to the auditorium. What this is changing the grades. The existing auditorium has stairs going down to the area. This is filling that whole area up and making just under 5% ramp all the way down, eliminating any stairs to that front auditorium and also that other, the other access point on the side of the
Those stairs that are falling apart.
Yes. Yep. So yeah,
That sounds like a less expensive answer.
Yeah, I was surprised when it came back less expensive, but when we started looking at how much entailed to redoing all those stairs, it started to make more sense.
Great.
And then it'll be a single level,
Yep.
correct? That you can go into either the west doorway or the south doorways into the auditorium.
Yep, that will come out as a single level and then slope down to Knox Street or to the parking lot.
Because currently there's stairs that come right out of those and are difficult for accessibility.
And then the next one, the last one, or the BIM coordination we chatted about, I feel like strongly feel that's a good value to help, especially with the tight schedules we have on these projects, to kind of make sure we're doing that due diligence and coordination ahead of time. We do recommend waiting to award the controls alternate. The district's still evaluating the difference between train and automated logic controls. We have a meeting scheduled the 22nd with automated logic. Hopefully after that we'll know more information and can make a recommendation.
These are two different vendors.
Yes. So
How are they different from each other?
So they're just different companies for controls. Right now Silas Willard has under Train controls. The Fieldhouse and Steel and Lombard both have automated logic controllers in them right now. So there's some different systems in the district, and the district, I believe, is looking more globally at their plan and approach. So just being a little more planful.
Well, Lee's being nice here. I kind of started this problem. I wanted to see if we could get one portal where we could access all controls for the district, so we could see the Fieldhouse and Silas Willard and King and GHS and everything under
Then
one.
can do it too, though.
Probably. He does it through Facebook. This is it was an effort on my part to try to be able to manage all of that remotely, so that we could look at these things, and if there were problems, and you could check to see if the controls were efficient and everything else. It was just a lot. It was an effort to be efficient and responsive to the building needs and not necessarily having to be on site to do it. And as we looked at it, it's become much more difficult because we have Train here and Automated Logic there and Johnson Controls here, and I mean, they're all over the place. And it's going to take a while, but I'll probably continue to harp on this issue for quite some time, and many years, because it's in the district's best interest to be under one umbrella if possible. And so they're trying to do what they can to get as close to that as possible, but it's probably not completely doable. So that's why they're still vetting out this Automated Logic Controls.
Yeah, so to give the district the best opportunity to look at those systems, we had the base bid, everybody bid Train Systems, and then alternate bid Automated Logic. So that way we, from a contractor perspective, everybody's bidding the same thing, and we can get, award the contractor based on the low bid, and then based on what the district decides on the alternate, we can make that selection. So you'll see the same thing in steel, the recommendation there. So overall, we had very good bid coverage. We came in under budget.
Wait, can you turn around and tell those two guys right there?
Yeah, we came in under budget overall. So we'll be finalizing all the contracts after going through and getting those in front, those executed. So
Are these all firms that you know? Is there ones you've worked with previously?
a lot of them have been, yes, I've worked with a lot of them. A few of them I have not, but they all, seem to be quality firms. So, yes.
Question on some of them, there's only one company bid.
Yes.
And do you have a comfort level that only having one bid, that the quality work's gonna be there?
Yes, so on Lombard, Desco Coatings, that was the epoxy floor system. It's pretty common that epoxy flooring, for some reason around here, we typically only get about one bid, but they do meet the specifications and are certified by, with epoxy flooring specifically, you have to be certified by the manufacturer to actually sell their product. So I feel comfortable there.
That's for the kitchen, right?
Yeah, the kitchen and the bathrooms.
Well, the bathrooms you have epoxy.
Kind of similar to Silas Willard, we did the same thing there. And the other one, Hanley Steel, I actually got pricing from another steel vendor, but he didn't follow the open bidding process correctly, so his bid wasn't accepted. But we have worked with Hanley Steel before, and they do a good job. So they're both AISC certified, which also gives me an additional comfort level that their fabrications meet their requirements. I can chat more about Lombard or steel.
Then I had another question, like on painting,
Yes.
Color Ink came in considerably under everyone.
Right.
So my first thought is, are we getting what we pay for?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, Color Ink is a good company. We've utilized them a lot. They're out of the Quad Cities. They're actually a sister company to Allied, which is the drywall contractor that was low as well. I'm not sure what the discrepancy is there, but we did vet them out, and they appear to have everything covered in the bid documents. So,
Because there's a big difference there.
and they are a big company as well. So if they did make a mistake, I guess they'll own it. They have big shops out of Peoria and the Quad Cities both. I guess they do have a Peoria shop too. So,
On the painting, I've been very dissatisfied with the status of the paint that the steel remodeling. There's huge areas where it's missing. We can have the same problem with this construction?
No, I shouldn't.
Then why do we have it there?
I was not part of that project, so I can't speak to why we did or not. I know that we will be, like when I worked, my last two projects I worked on was the field house and Silas, and we worked closely with the district to approve. Actually, on those two projects, we changed the paint type to comply more with what the district wanted after the fact, to make sure that it was easy for the district to go and get touch-up paint and making sure that the quality is there. So we will keep close attention to the painting quality and make sure the right products go where they need to go.
And it'll adhere well.
So.
That was the problem, is the problem there
Yeah.
still?
Absolutely.
And some of that can be if they don't prep it correctly, especially if they're painting over old paint. So, because the products have changed to comply with low VOC or volatile, back, we used to be able to do oil-based on everything. You can't do that anymore. So the type of paint is different than it used to be, but they are getting better with enamels and different epoxy type paints. So, I don't know if you have anything to add with that, Brian, but.
No, you're right on. I think your biggest problem at steel is it adhering to the existing frames.
Yeah.
And like Lisa said, I don't think they prepped the frames correctly. So there is an allowance to repaint most of those frames to take care of that in the renovations. So we need to go one by one on those frames to make sure they get prepped and repainted.
And prepped, so it
Yes.
stays on
Yes,
this time.
prep's important.
Yeah.
Well, our district painter went through last year and did a large portion of those, stripped them all down and repainted them with the appropriate paint. So some of that work's already been done
Yeah.
by our district painter.
Yeah, and it wasn't in the bid documents, but doing our walkthrough, we noticed that as well. We put an allowance to be used as district's discretion for additional paint repairs. That wasn't in the scope of Guy Steel, so.
Thank you. And it won't happen moving forward, right?
Correct.
And our district painter is also looking at the paint specs to make sure that it complies with other things that we're using.
So, do you have any other questions on Lombard? I can open up Steel as well. Or do we need to do this?
Do I need to vote on it?
They need to vote on this
Separate,
first.
okay.
Any more questions?
You're happy with it?
I am, yes.
So we'll vote on this, but we're gonna go into steel, and I guess the question I have, the same companies bid two different schools, and there's huge differences between those.
Right.
Will you be able to explain that when we get to the steel bid, or why?
Some yes, some I'm not sure why.
I mean, it's crazy differences.
Right. Yeah.
That was my question of, are you comfortable with
Yeah.
some of these bids? Because they're big differences.
Yeah, they are. And some of that depends on the size of company. So like one good example is Tri-City Ironworks. They're low on steel erection at Lombard. They were the highest out of all of 6 bidders, right?
Yeah.
They're a fairly new startup company. They actually are a subset of Tri-City Electric. You've heard of them?
Yes.
Mike Ortega is the guy that works on there. He actually came from they're starting up a steel erection company, but he has a small crew. So he got Lombard. The steel erection schedule is the same on both projects. I think he knew that, and he knew if he got both projects, he's gonna have to be pulling 100%, a whole nother crew out of nowhere. And that's really hard to do with the trade shortage we have right now. So typically when bidders have that's why you wanna get your bids out early, because if they get their workload filled up, their number goes higher next time. So if they're hungry, they go after it harder. B&B Masonry on the first project was hungry. He told me that. He went after it really hard and got it. He was the highest out of all the Masons the second time because he got the first one. So if he got both, he was going to make sure he could staff it and go after it that way. So a lot of it has to do with manpower and their schedule. It could be that they miss something, or if they want the job, they're forced to reconcile that too. So the combination of both, but I know a few of the scenarios, the bidders, they told me they really wanted the job and went after it hard. And sometimes, maybe their competition didn't, so.
I mean, the next question I have is for Brian, well, probably more than you. What is this building gonna look like? I mean, we saw these pictures when you're designing it. Is it gonna look like what we saw, or have there been radical changes in terms of the exterior finishes?
Lombard is the same. It hasn't changed since the last rendering that was presented.
Okay, so
Maybe we need to get you a board to put up.
I think we talked to Jeff about that.
Yeah.
And I think they're supposed to be ready tomorrow so that we could distribute those.
it's always tomorrow.
If you could double check on that.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. There were.
It's always tomorrow.
Oh, we're glad you're here, Brian. I heard you weren't gonna be here.
think
Oh,
we
it's
were
8 o'clock, so
going
yes, tomorrow.
to get 5 large boards for multiple sites to put up, so.
Yeah, Lombard's aesthetics haven't changed.
Okay.
Steel's has a little bit.
And you'll explain that when we get the steel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions, comments?
Lyon,
Oh, yes.
Phelps,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sharpie.
Yes.
So steel goes up tomorrow?
We're still waiting on permits, but, we'll be started before you know it. I did want to mention that we will be working closely once the permits are there and then equipment shows up, we'll probably put temp fence up, so we may not put it up ahead of time and just let it sit, but we'll have it be secure and safe for the kids when construction's going on, so.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah. So you might not see it this week or next week, depending on mobilizations, and I know we're still waiting on a few things with permits, but they should be pulled together here for too long. So steel.
Whoa,
Oh,
got
go ahead.
a
Yeah, we need to get a
couple
motion.
questions
Oh,
to-
sorry.
Need a motion to approve the steel bids.
So moved.
Member Phillips, second?
Second.
Oh,
Member
Sorry.
Rodriguez? Yes.
All right. So steel, we bid, went out to bid right after Lombard was done. So we wanted to purposely go out afterwards to allow those bidders that, have concerns about manning two projects at the same time to allow that. We received bids on the 6th of August. We received good coverage. We actually did receive at least one bid in every category, which is good. The only alternate we're recommending taking at this time is BIM coordination. Part of the reason was on this one, and I think it's partly the orientation of the parking lot, is a longer run. Asphalt was cheaper by about $100,000 on this one. So, job to job, you never know. I know at Silas, we were cheaper to go concrete. Lombard was concrete. This one was asphalt. The field house was asphalt. So that's why we have both of those there, to give the best value to the district. So we'll have asphalt parking lots at Steel, which will match the existing ones. BIM coordination we recommend, and then holding on the controls alternate award as well on this one.
Any reasoning why Gunther didn't want to bid the concrete at Steel?
I'm not sure why, unless I know Hein bid the concrete, but Gunther didn't, so,
They just did asphalt.
Do they just
like concrete?
So,
Well, it
yeah.
says cast in place concrete.
Yeah, they didn't bid that,
They
no.
didn't bid that either.
Unless it's because they don't like to do foundation work. I know that Gunther's traditionally a road builder, right? And with the concrete package, it's the building foundations and building concrete, so it could be part of it, but I'm not sure. So we had a lot of the same bidders that bid both. Some, for some reason, decided not to bid on this one. We only had one bid for, I think it was site work, epoxy flooring again, and then demolition, and then kitchen equipment. The kitchen equipment number was good, though. I felt comfortable with them. We've utilized them both in district before, and I've utilized them on a lot of their projects. They're the same company that did Silas Willard. So I feel comfortable with all the contractors. Flooring, we did get one bid from TSI Commercial Floor Covering. There were one and two that said they would bid, and only one turned to bid in that day. But they are. They're around the Peoria area. I forget the exact town, but they're central Illinois. So they're a fairly good sized contractor. There was one other one that may have interest, but due to the timing of the bids and everything, they said they'd keep on the list for the next projects, but it didn't work to bid this one. Overall, we're under budget again on this project as well, so feel good about that, and yeah, I don't know if I have any other questions. It's a fairly straightforward project, and the documents seemed pretty good, so we only had 2 addendas and didn't have to extend the bid time, so it's a little cleaner because it's not as much rebuttals.
So aesthetically, your favorite term of value engineering, as we were going through steel, we were at the higher side of the budget. So to get it below where the anticipated budget was, we decreased the amount of brick on the building and increased the amount of fiber cement board. And we decreased the height of the windows in the classroom. So in your typical pod schools, you have windows that go from floor to ceiling. We brought the bottom up to about 3 feet, so it would have a base on it. Nothing too drastic. The windows are actually a little bit wider in the new addition than they are in the pod school, so you're still going to get the same natural light in there. And then I mentioned brick, not only on the exterior elevations, but in the courtyard too. All the brick was removed inside the courtyard, and it's all going to be the fiber cement siding. We're going to try to match, depending on which product line manufacturer that the contractor uses, we're going to try to match what's already out there at Steel to keep the consistent aesthetic around the building. So other than that, square footage was reduced some. We kind of squeezed everything in to get the most out of the building to get the most cost savings possible, but didn't sacrifice any program areas. And other than that, it's gonna look a little bit different just because of the amount of brick and fiber cement swap that we did.
It's gonna,
So it's a match the fiber cement that's in the gym right now,
yes, that's it.
which is 2 different colors though.
Yes, that is 2 different colors. We're not planning on using 2 colors. Because we actually have 3 materials on the addition, similar to what we had before. We have the brick that's gonna match, we have the fiber cement that we're gonna try to match, and then the infill between the windows is a decorative block, which is the stone that you already have on the front steel. So we're not adding any new additional materials, we're just trying to tie the whole vocabulary together.
And then what about the
Fascia?
metal trim?
So it's still there. It was an alternate bid. There's 2 alternate bids, one to paint it, one to remove it. After reviewing the one to remove it, the price is astronomical. The painting is pretty cost effective, and with talking to the administrators, it was said that you guys could possibly do that on your own through your own painting staff. But we would recommend probably to go with the darker color to match the rest of steel, to really, again, tie it all together.
But you were going to, Lee, you were going to get an alternate bid price for doing the fiber cement board on
Just the street side.
just the street side, and then maybe painting the back side that you guys
Yeah,
really.
once we award the contract, just we talked about maybe doing instead of all fiber cement, because there's a lot of part that faces houses in the back, maybe doing a combined where, the high impact areas, we could price up a fiber cement
So it'd be
option.
a change order then.
Yeah, it'd be a change order work instead of an alternate accepted, because I think the alternate came in at over 100,000 for the siding
That's hard.
and about 8,000 for painting. So, we can get working with the contractor, maybe find the best mix of where that would work, and then come to the board and say, hey, if we're still under budget, we have this much in contingency, do you want to utilize some of that contingency funds to do that work? Because you wouldn't do that work till next spring or summer anyway. So we might as well wait and figure out how does construction go through that course and see where we're at. And do you want to preserve those contingency funds, or do you want to use those for something like that?
One of the terms or problems where I was told earlier about the fascia being removed was that it's integrated in with the roof.
Right.
Roof.
You'd need-
So moving forward, as we hit King, which doesn't have a new roof.
King does have new roof.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
No, we will be
No, we're
replacing
replacing the roof at King.
Right, yeah, it's like
King, yes.
So you do
Right,
have
but
an
it's, so
opportunity
we don't
to
have the
do that.
integration problems.
Right.
with
So we
fascia.
could replace the fascia there
Yes.
much less expensively,
Yes.
because we're gonna be taking off the top trim anyway.
Correct.
Correct.
Question I've got on, and this may sound petty, but dark color versus light color, what's your experience been on sun fade? So if you go some of these darker colors, then the sun fades them, you got issues down the road. So what's our thought process on different color, dark and light? Because I won't be sitting here 2 years from now and say, boy, I wish we'd went a different color because that sun faded.
Traditionally around here in the upper Midwest, your value for energy efficiency is usually pushes you to dark colored roofs.
He's not talking about the roof though, he's talking about the paint in the
I'm
fascia.
talking about the paint on your
Okay.
fiberboard and your fascias
Gotcha,
and your,
gotcha. Yes, no, that's a good point. If you're talking about painting that dark black, you want to make sure you have the right kind of paint that would help resist fading, because there is definitely some that will fade more than others. I know at Silas we have a dark red on those columns, and that's a higher end paint, the product that was put on there that is specifically for exterior grade. I assume that the paint that was spec'd or that will be spec'd for that.
Yeah, the exterior paint that we shared, it's an epoxy-based paint for the exterior. It'll hold up longer, but darker colors eventually will fade. If you're painting it, obviously it's less costly than if you're installing black metal panel. They would almost not recommend installing black metal panel because there's other issues with that. But yes, a darker color will fade faster. To tie it all in, it really needs to be darker. If you painted it lighter, it might stick out even more than it does now, because it's a soft tan, I believe, right now. But the whole front
You
of
know
steel.
when it started though.
Yes, it did start that color. And each school is different.
It was dark brown when it started.
Yes, yes. But the front of steel, all that canopy work is all exposed steel beams, which are painted black. that's why we would recommend the black.
And that's been there 7 years now?
2012.
Yeah. So, and it looks pretty good yet, so.
So we would have an opportunity to move forward, the King, to do something differently on the fascia.
Yeah, I mean, there's still gonna be a premium to replace it, but you are correct in saying that you are removing the coping to replace the roof, so that is the time to do it if you wanna do it. I'm not gonna tell you that you're gonna have a drastic cost savings of putting something else back there, but that is the time to do it.
Thank you, Brent.
You're welcome.
I think we were planning on putting that as an alternate on that one as well.
Yeah, we'll do it as an alternate there too.
Just to get
Make
the
it
option.
beautiful.
And Lee, because the two gentlemen behind you definitely want to know, and I want them to know, the steel bids came in where?
They're under budget as well.
I'm sorry, what?
They're under budget.
Oh, under budget.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you guys want to write that down.
I got one other question.
Yep.
So I've heard Mrs. Ham say our painting crew and this, what's the, on a new construction, what's the maintenance? You know, we're talking a lot about different painting and things like that. What's the longevity or the maintenance prediction on a new construct? When do we have to be sitting as a board and say, hey, we need to spend X on maintenance on this building?
So you have a 1-year warranty for any warranty type items. Any wear and tear type maintenance, I assume you'll probably have some, being in a new school, have some touch-up paint for that first year for wear and tear in the hallways specifically. Besides that, there really shouldn't be much in the first few years. It really depends on how heavily utilized those hallways are and those things. I mean, I'm not sure what you guys have spent on maintenance on Lombard and Steel since the last remodel.
Well, a lot of it's been geothermal, so,
Yeah.
but that's control systems and
Yeah.
things that are pretty costly.
And I
In
was-
terms of flooring, lighting, things of that nature, virtually nothing.
Yeah, and Silas has been fairly decent with mechanical, I think,
Mhm.
hasn't it? And so, I know geothermal is a lot more components out there, so there tends to be a higher, when things do go wrong, it's a little more expensive than the systems we're putting in with the rooftop mechanical units, so. There shouldn't be as much of you always want to save for those things when they do become a maintenance thing later on, but beside the normal wear and tear, there shouldn't be a lot, so.
How's the fiber board worn at Willard? I mean, at Steel?
When I was out there, it looked pretty good, yeah. And I know I utilized
I
it.
saw some separation on the backside.
I haven't seen that. I know depending on where it's at and the time of year, you will get, with any exterior material, will get expansion, contraction. So there are some joints in there that are allowed to open up and close, so you may see that depending on the time of year. And that's true with anything besides brick, I would say. I mean, brick, you caulk all those joints and then,
You don't want extension of the brick.
no.
Is it between the colors on the back side?
No, I don't remember now, I come back.
I remember.
It's all the way to the back, there's some areas that, you kept it off no mowing damage, is glad to see.
Good. You guys will carry warranties from the manufacturer too, like your roof will get a 20-year warranty on it.
Yeah.
You guys will have to maintain defects as like hail damage or roof leaks or like that, but you'll get a warranty for 20 years on your roof, and other larger components like your rooftop unit, your fiber cement board will carry a longer term warranty also.
Well, and then can you explain, you'll do it better than I am, but how there is a grade difference at Steel, so that, when you're mowing, there's really a foundation that's gonna go up pretty high
Right.
because of the
So-
grade difference, so.
Yeah, if you think to Steel where the playground is right now, we're gonna be within about 8 to 9 feet of the playground when we're all said and done, but your building elevation floor has to remain the same where it's at now. There's kind of a hill there. So where that playground comes up, you're gonna have, is that 4 or 5 feet?
3 feet.
3 feet
Yeah.
of foundation wall before the brick starts to that finished floor. So if you stand next to the playground, it's gonna be 3 feet before the finished floor starts. So the one benefit with that is you're not gonna be able to see in the classroom at all, which is nice for distractions. I guess I haven't been on the playground. There might be a monkey bar close by. Maybe you could get closer, but otherwise you're not going to be able to see, and distract the kids there. But that will help too with that foundation wall. There'll be concrete in that area. So.
And we put a different type of window in the back there to reduce the sound from the playground, so there won't be noise because it is going to be so close to the playground. We were cognizant of that as well. And either Brian or Lee said that we did reduce the size of the windows at Steele, but actually it worked in well because there's casework, which are built-in teacher's desks that kind of go in an L behind the windows, not behind, in front of the windows, I guess, in the classrooms. So it would be awkward if there were windows there, so it actually worked in really nice with the way the casework was designed.
So we know what the interior of the classrooms will look like? I don't remember seeing the pictures of those.
I haven't seen a 3D image of it, but I've seen the layout and the blueprints of it.
I'll look more carefully. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
This will be the same schedule as Lombard, starting very soon.
Right. Tomorrow. As soon as the building permits are issued tomorrow.
Same answer.
Yep. I'll be sending out notices to proceed tomorrow and getting contracts in hand, so that's the rest of my week, so.
Well, thank you. Allison?
Lyon?
I'm first again? Yes.
Phelps?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Sharpie?
Yes.
How should we just
Yes.
We get caught off guard sometimes. Oh my God, it's me.
Okay, moving on, focus area 3, responding to the changing needs of our community. Letter A, discussion regarding health insurance plan changes.
Just spent $20 million.
Okay, last month, Dr. Asplund mentioned that we were pulling this item off of the agenda because we had not received the memorandum of understanding from the GEA. We still have not received a memorandum of understanding with the GEA, but we're getting to the point where if we're going to make changes to our insurance plan and make any adjustments, we need to let UMR and Cottingham and Butler know that here very shortly. We'll be moving into the enrollment period starting in the middle of October. Same timeline that we had last year. All of those changes will need to be made by the beginning of November so that employees have new cards and have all of their benefits in line by January 1st. So we'll be asking the board next month to move on these recommendations. One thing that I wanted to point out, in your consent agenda information, there was the medical trust fund balance. And there is very specific language in the GEA contract that triggers certain things that the advisory committee and then the board must do once fund balances drop to 80% and then 60% of the previous 12 months expenditures. So right now, in July of 2019, we're at that 64% threshold. I'm anticipating with some of the number of claims that we've had this summer, we've had a large number of surgeries, a large number of medical issues, that we are going to drop to that 60% or below that 60% threshold. So there's very specific language that triggers some cost-saving measures. We are currently working with Cottingham and Butler on vetting what those are, and we'll bring those to the board next month. I could potentially say we're looking at anywhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $300,000 at that point. So with that being said, this is one item that we'll be bringing back as well.
If it falls below 60% though, aren't we required by the contract to take action?
Yes.
So what it says, I have the actual language. It says any premium increases and or cost containment modifications will not take effect until the fund balances drop below 60% of the previous 12 months program expenditures. But we also have some other contract language that says we cannot increase premiums for this contract cycle. So it would just be cost containment measures that we would.
This recommendation doesn't require increase in premium, does it?
This does not, no.
So if it goes below 60%, and if we want to follow the contract that we signed, we have to take action regardless if we get a memorandum of understanding.
Correct. And those would all take effect on January 1st.
So we need to take action sooner, pretty soon.
Yes.
And I'm gonna take time right now to say something I said again last week. I appreciate when teachers take advantage for surgeries and all during the summer, when they don't have to use substitutes. And that's greatly appreciated. Yes, we spent more money, but we saved it on instruction and substitutes.
Agreed.
And keep people healthy.
And although we're spending more money on claims, that's also a good thing, because that means we're offering a quality product to our employees, which you want a benefit that they are going to take advantage of. So it's a good problem to have, but we want to make sure that our fund balances remain healthy in the medical trust, and that we're not in a situation that we were in 10 years ago, where we're having to borrow money in order to keep our health plan afloat. So we just want everyone to be cognizant of this, and then we'll be bringing this back to vote on the tier systems next month. We're looking at moving from a 4-tier system, which is employee only, employee plus spouse, employee plus child and family, to a 3-tier system, which is employee only, employee plus children, which means now you could have more than one child as a single parent. Before, you could only have one child on your plan, then you were bumped into the family category. So now a single parent could have 2, 3, 4 children on that plan. And then that drops off the tier, which is employee plus spouse tier. So the committee had 2 different options, and this actually was a compromise, this third option that they voted on. You can do employee surcharges, and you can do employee carve-outs. So an employee surcharge simply says that if your spouse has insurance through an employer and they choose to be on our insurance, that there is a premium that is paid for that every month. So it might be $100, $150, $200, because we're here to take care of our employees and our employees' family members that don't have insurance in other places. But if you have options, you should be on your employer's insurance. A spousal carve-out is similar, but says if you have insurance through your employer, you do not have the option to be on our insurance. We felt by eliminating the employee plus spouse tier, and basically forcing those individuals to go on a family policy, that if they didn't have insurance, it still gave them an option, but it was in essence a spousal surcharge without adding the surcharge on there. So that was
the committee's recommendation.
That was the committee's recommendation, yes.
And this may save how much money then? Or?
Well, we need to wait until enrollments are finished with all of our new employees, so I can bring that back to you next month on how many would be switching tiers. The committee is made up of members of both SEIU unions as well as the GEA, but the GEA contract drives what the SEIU benefits are. So that is why we were waiting on language for that, but we have not received it. So we need to move forward next month. Does anyone have any questions about the change in the tier structure?
Okay. Move on to next discussion point, and that's regarding student loan payments that was requested
Yes.
last meeting.
So one of the components of the contract that was negotiated last year was as an incentive to get younger teachers who are new to the profession to want to come to Galesburg. We offered an incentive for student loan reimbursement. So if someone was in their first 5 years of teaching after graduation, they could apply for a $1,400 a year reimbursement for their student loans. We had 15 teachers take advantage of that last year for a total cost of $21,000 to the district. This really doesn't cost the district any more than they would have potentially been entitled to otherwise. So each teacher can be reimbursed for up to $1,400 of continuing education credits each year. In lieu of that, these individuals that are new to the profession can take that $1,400 and apply it towards their student loan. Once they've hit that 5-year threshold, then they're eligible for the continuing ed credits like everyone else. But we felt through discussions that most young people who have student loan debt, which unfortunately that's most of them, that they probably weren't going to have the funds or were more worried about getting their student loans paid down than continuing on to get a master's. So I think this is a really effective recruitment tool. We have another, approximately how many first-year teachers do we have?
22.
22. So I would imagine, I just sent out the request today that we'll be having the majority of those. So I could see our program easily double for next year. And we actually pay for this program through Title II because we can use recruitment incentives as part of Title II money, so it's through federal grants that we actually pay for this program.
Good.
So where's our grant monies? Because I do quick math, or like this year, that's 105,000 over the 5 years, if they all stay with us. So what's our grant monies, or will we, and if you say we may double, now my math says we're up to 210,000. So what's our?
So Title II this year, we're at about 214,000 before reallocation. So that was our initial allocation from Title II. So eventually we may have to supplement with other district funds depending on the number of individuals. But not all of those 15 that participated were in year one. So I can think of 2 individuals that they had started at other districts, they came to us, and this was their last year to take advantage of it, because they were in their 4th, going into their 5th year.
So you feel comfortable we have grant money then to cover?
Yes, yes. And I'm gonna talk about the budget here in a little bit, and we are definitely in a much better position than we were a couple years ago to be able to offer programs like this for recruitment and retainment.
Right, and just so everybody understands, the title grants, the Title I and II, which are the big parts of title grants, are reallocated every year. We don't necessarily know what we're gonna get from one year to the next. That's based on federal allocations. Title I's a little bit more stable than Title II. We've been seeing a little bit of a decrease in Title II money, and but that's all federally driven. So that's been, if you're watching that, that's totally from the federal government side. And Ms. Ham is correct. It's absolutely correct that's, you can do teacher retention, class size reduction, and then staff development out of Title II. And so right now we have about $214,000 this year. Next year maybe more, or maybe less. And then the other point I want to make sure we made, and I believe Ms. Ham made it earlier, is this $1,400 is money that already would have been budgeted per employee to go to grad school. So that's out of a different pot of money, but it's difficult to predict how much that would be used one year to the next, because it just depends on how much desire or ability people have to go off and get advanced degrees. But if you use the $1,400 for loans, you can't use it for grad school.
Correct.
So they don't get it twice.
Thank you.
So year 6.
Thank you. Moving on, discussion regarding cell phones.
Thank you. So Member Banks asked if we put this on the agenda last month, and now, of course, unfortunately, she will not be here to continue that conversation. Thought we should put it on here and continue that conversation regarding the board's desire. The current policy regarding cell phones is not really restrictive. We can do basically whatever we want with that policy now. So it's not necessarily really a policy, even though that's where we started with the discussion last month. The board policy is sufficient to let us do whatever we want to do. It's really more about how we want to enforce it at the building levels. So it's as we move forward with this discussion, we need to make sure we're not talking about policy, because the policy already covers it. It's regarding what we want to do in terms of enforcement. Do we want to enforce a zero use? Do we want to let them continue? Do we want to do a teacher by teacher? Obviously, we need to be making sure we get everybody's input here. So I think I will just throw out the first thing is I think we need to get a quick survey out to the teachers to talk about what we want to do, because as I said, right now the policy is already sufficient to a ban if that's what we want to do. So I would throw out that we should quickly first just get a teacher survey and find out what their opinion is in terms of what the appropriate action is. I'll leave my thoughts there.
And my question would be whether it's a problem in the classrooms. Are we addressing something that's working fine? So I think the teacher survey would be useful information.
Yeah, my input would be, so I came up through education without a cell phone and made it, but we're in a different world today. I have a strong opinion that the cell phone can come to school, but it doesn't go to the classroom. And I think my opinion is that there's a lot of disruption sometimes. But then I can go the other way, tongue in cheek, and say in today's world, maybe there's some class, they all need a phone in there with all the apps and things that maybe there's a class that they need them. I just feel I've witnessed, and don't take this wrong, but there's some cell phones being used in the audience right now. You know, cell phones become a commonplace, but I think in education, unless it's a class on cell phone or whatever, there's no need for a cell phone in a classroom. And if someone wants to take me to task, I'll have a very nice discussion with you about it. But the safety of our student is utmost, and if there's an issue that comes about in a classroom, we can get help there. We don't need a student calling or something. To me, the cell phone should not be in the classroom, and that's my opinion.
I feel the same way, and I'm in the younger generation of everybody, I guess I would say, and we use cell phones all the time, but I feel as though they are more of a distraction than anything. But if it goes teacher by teacher, they're gonna say, well, this teacher lets me have it, and I didn't have time to go to my locker to put it away. So if we just make a line across the board, then I feel like that would be a much better way. But I also agree that we need to do the survey just to see what the teachers do have to say about it, because we're not the ones that have to deal with it, they are the ones that have to deal with it.
I just hope we don't make every teacher a cell phone police person. It just worries me we waste a lot of time doing that. That's what we had previously. I'm not sure where the sweet spot is for this. I would love to see results of survey and some discussion among teachers and students. And in terms of them having to have an application, we're buying these machines for every student to have. I mean, it seems to me they should be able to get any data they may need for a class off the machine we're paying for already. I'd be hard pressed to believe that would not be possible. Recognize some of the audience.
No. Well, not to truncate the conversation here, but I want to make sure, I just mentioned that next month I plan to keep this on as an item with the results of the survey that we create, and we'll obviously put the questions up and the responses, and we'll let people know so we can take the conversation from there, so that we can move forward. But as it stands right now, for anybody that wonders, basically we leave it up to the teacher. We say they can ban it from their room, but then we have heard that becomes a problem because of some of the things that we just heard here, that one teacher lets them, another one doesn't, but then they're taking it to every class and pulling it out and sneaking it out, and it becomes a distraction. There are merits to the argument on both sides, saying that it's a distraction and having that as an eliminated item for their in their locker is definitely a very valid argument. There's an argument on the other side, if you want to look at this from an equal standpoint, that and this may sound really far out there, but there's definitely a strand of research out there that will tell you this, that we have now made students addicted to them, and so if you just take them away from them, now you have other problems. And so, not that maybe you need to start somewhere, I don't know, but that is a real issue, and so we need to be cognizant of both of those complete extremes, and try to figure out what the right course of action is for our students with, as Member Lyons said, full recognition. We do give them devices that they are able to access the internet on those devices in class. So I have my own opinions, but I'm going to leave those to myself until next month.
Okay, moving on to the next discussion regarding swimming co-op.
Mr. Matthews is here to present some information.
One of the topics of conversation that has come up in the last couple months, as some of you may or may not know, is this year Sterling and Geneseo will be joining the Western Big Six. And Sterling currently has a swimming co-op with Rock Falls. So the topic of conversation was whether or not the Western Big Six would allow other schools in the conference to have a co-op. And what a co-op is it allows a host school to have other schools come to their school to participate in a sport. So for example, we're talking about swimming. Galesburg would be the host school, and we would have other schools around us that may express interest in coming to our facility to join our team and then compete on our schedule. For example, boys swimming, we've been contacted by ROVA about the possibility of them joining our boys swim team to compete in the winter. So there's a couple things that have to come into place. Number one, the board has to give a permission here, and then wherever the other school coming to us, their board would have to approve it. It's a 2-year cycle, so you would be signing up for 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, you would have to figure out whether or not you want to continue it or you want to discontinue it. It wouldn't be any cost to us. We wouldn't provide transportation to the other school coming to us. They would have to get here at their own expense. We wouldn't be changing our practices. We wouldn't be changing our schedule. It would just be the opportunity for another school that does not offer swimming to come to us and participate with Galesburg. So really, this is just whether or not the board feels that this is something that we're okay doing. Because if we're okay with it, boys swimming, the deadline is October 1st. So we're kind of getting to the point whether we need to kind of figure out if the board's okay with looking at that avenue. And there should be something, yeah, so it's just kind of some quick information.
Could you explain the last point there?
Yeah, so I had Ray put some information together, because the one thing I think would come up is if we allowed other kids to come to our school, they would be taking away opportunities for our own Galesburg kids. So, Ray put together some information. We, over the last 4 years, we've averaged about 20 swimmers per team. Each swimmer participates in about 10 events. 2 of the meets that we have are unlimited, so if we had 30 kids, 30 kids could swim. If we had 50 kids, 50 kids could swim. 7 meets are 24 swimmers can participate, 4 meets, 12, and then 2 meets are 8. And the reason for that is as you get to sectionals, it really drops off that only 8 kids can compete. Some of the invitationals we go to, a little bit more can compete. And then our duels they're almost unlimited or pretty close to unlimited. So Ray didn't feel like there would be that opportunity of someone coming in, taking away our own kid opportunities, because there's enough meets and events going around that he didn't see that being a problem.
Is Ray okay with it?
Yes, and Ray brought this up when I first got here about co-oping, and he thought in the Western Big Six bylaws that it was a rule or bylaw that they couldn't co-op. Well, it was never in there. It was just no one really ever brought it up. So with Sterling coming in, it was an opportunity that we're either going to do it or not. And the thing that we agreed as a conference is we felt that it was appropriate if it's in a sport that only has 1 class. So for example, swimming, there's only 1 class. In bowling, there's only 1 class. Whereas volleyball, basketball, there's 4 classes. So we didn't feel like we wanted to get into a territory where we would start forming a super team of schools. But it's like, if there's only 1 class, we're all on the same level.
Right, and so everybody understands, when you co-op with a school, if we have 1,200 and Knoxville has 400, our school now has 1,600.
Right.
in terms of classifications. That's why they said only one class.
Right, because it doesn't matter if we take ROVA, for example, whatever their enrollment is, it's still going to keep us in one class for swimming. It's not going to affect anything.
And how many schools have asked? Because you told me.
Well, girls
I know
swimming
I had
was,
two other companies.
yeah, girls swimming was a hot topic, but we missed the deadline and we hadn't had all our ducks in a row to get to that point. But girls swimming, Monmouth was interested, Abington was interested, and Knoxville was interested. And you can co-op with more than one. And a conversation that Ray and I have kind of been having is, you know, how big do we want to kind of do this? Because we're just not going to open the floodgates and just go with it. So him and I have just kind of been talking about trying to figure out what the best direction is. But without your permission or approval, we can't even go in that direction. Boys, ROVA is the only school that's reached out for boys swimming. Yeah, and I know they have 2 kids that are interested to coming over. Yeah. And their superintendent has reached out, and then I actually got an email from one of the young men that would like to come here and swim, just kind of asking to see where we're at with it, so.
It's
out
a
there.
practice before school?
No, they'll practice after school.
It's after school?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that's something they would have to work on how they would get here and make those practice times, because as I told Ray, we're not going to blow up our practice schedule for them. We'll try to accommodate as best as we can, but at the same time, our kids are accommodated, you know, to practice after school, and that's when it needs to be.
Mr. Matthews, since we haven't really gotten very far with this, I'm sure the answer is no, but do you know if all the area schools have the same eligibility requirements that we do? Are they no pass, no play? Are they 4 pass, class pass? Do they drug test? Do they not drug test? How do we get to that where everybody's doing the same thing?
Yeah, and see, they would have to follow.
They'd have to follow our.
Follow ours, yes. So they would pay the activity fee. They would follow our eligibility. You know, and that would be myself working with their AD to figure out, you know, making sure that all those things are falling into place. So, you know, we're on the block, so that's a little bit different, but it would be just finding out what their, you know, what their eligibility require, whether it is a no pass, no play, or if they got to be passing 5 out of the 7, or however that works.
Is there a shared cost with the coaching stipends?
Well, that's something that would probably come up. For right now, it's more of just trying to get the ball rolling. You know, there are expenses that could be in play. Number one, helping pay the coaching stipend. Entry fees. Some of the meets that we go to have entry fees, so it's whether or not, you know, we can work those things out as well. But I didn't want any additional transportation costs to the district. That needs to be on them. So those are the things that we need to kind of, once we get permission, we can kind of speed this up, so when we come back in September, we can have all of those things in place so we can kind of move forward with it.
And then we'll need to talk about some insurance liability issues, having other schools using our facilities.
Is this a recommendation on your part, or how do you feel about this?
I'm okay with it. As I told Ray, ultimately, I feel like it will come down to me whether or not I think the co-op is a good fit between us and them. I think that's the best way to put it. Just because they want to do it doesn't mean that we want to do it. It's got to be a partnership between both schools.
So a question, and maybe this is getting too in the weeds, but you get co-op students and they're having a successful year. Is this the Galesburg Silver Streak program?
Yes. Yes,
so
they would.
Everything that happens is Galesburg.
We're not changing our schedule. We're not changing our name. They will swim under us, or we're not going to do it. Yeah.
Silver bullet.
Lots of choices.
That's a bad idea. Well, okay.
Thank you.
So, I was gonna say, so do you want us to bring it back next month for your consideration? Do you need more information? You know, because if hypothetically we need to do something for boys swimming for Coach Van Oudegem, that's gonna be at next month's board meeting, right?
Right, yeah, we would need to, because there's a form that the board president would have to sign off on
Their board would have to sign off on it as well, and then we bring the two together. Yeah.
You have time to do this?
Sure.
We'll bring it back next month.
Oh,
We also would probably need a cooperative, do we? I'm trying to remember, have you ever dealt with cooperative contracts?
18 years ago.
Yeah,
I
I'd say
would-
didn't do them at Farmington.
I would encourage someone to contact the board president at Cuba. North Fulton has a pretty extensive co-op agreement, and I know that she is very active in the school board association and has been trying to get some legislation brought up the last couple years to be voted on in the joint session. I can't think of what that's called.
You mean at the school board convention?
Yes.
You mean at the delegate assembly?
The delegate assembly.
What are they looking for?
Well, one of the issues and concerns I know that they have has to do with the fact that two boards cannot meet to discuss personnel together.
Oh, right.
And so that becomes a little tenuous in that if you have an issue with a coach, you can't sit down with their board and decide what you want to do moving forward. So they're both basically voting independently for personnel. And she would have, there's some other concerns, but I know that they have been trying to change some of those nuances.
Typically, the way it would be structured, the employee is still your employee 100%. If you receive compensation or a stipend to offset that cost, that's one thing. But co-op agreements, the agreement would need to be approved by both boards, and they can get pretty detailed. I mean, they need, we've got to spell out all the terms, indemnification, insurance, transportation, whether the other district is going to provide transportation, whether the transportation is going to be allowed to have kids transport themselves. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces, so it's doable, but we're going to need some information really quickly.
Well, and I have one other question for you, Mr. Matthews. So why can't the individuals just swim for their school? It's swimming. It's not like basketball where they got to pass it to somebody. I mean, if you're just swimming, why can't you just swim as Rova or Knoxville or Abingdon or Monmouth and just come to our meet?
They can't participate in the meets. They won't get in.
Why?
Because there's just not enough to get them in. And I thought.
Not enough what?
To get, like, we've had schools reach out to me about coming to swim, and Ray's like, we don't have room for them because there's only so many lanes to swim in. So these kids have to go out and get times through the Y so that they have times to submit for the IHSA section.
Okay, but knowing nothing about this, if we added 8 students from another school, didn't they just take up 8 spots for somebody to swim in versus 8 people coming
Well, they would
from
just swim
3
in some
different
of those.
schools to come?
Yeah.
It would be just like wrestling, you'd have to earn your spot to get to that meet. So in swimming, they would practice with us, but then they have to have qualifying time to beat one of the Galesburg kids out.
And I appreciate that, but I just saw that number up there where we had, I don't know, was it like 14 meets that were unlimited?
Right.
So I'm not trying to discourage them, I'm just trying to
think-
figure out what's their motivation to come with us when they can just go to these other meets if they just wanted to be
Well, it's whether or not they
Knoxville
can
swim
get
team.
in, and.
And number one, if they have a facility.
We haven't allowed anybody else really into our meets just because of sheer numbers that we already have. And they can't come and compete at our dual meets because it's a conference meet. They can't come to our invites because we only allow 6, kind of like a track meet. So we're limited on people that we're bringing in. So like Kewanee Weathersfield wants to come, and I have asked Ray, can we do it? He's like, we can't fit them in here.
Gotcha.
Now, whether or not they can go somewhere else, I just don't think these schools have had the luck to do that. You know, at Farmington, we had kids that swim independently.
Right.
And they would swim at the Y
Right,
to get times to submit for the sectional. And, I mean, they just weren't able to get, I mean, they swam in one meet.
Now, I will tell all of you here that I have dealt with cooperative agreements at the board level, and they're not short. And so it will take some doing to get it done by the next board meeting, and that's assuming we can get both. all 3, 5, 6, however many districts we're talking about here to agree on.
I don't really see what the benefit of this is to Galesburg. You know, it's very generous to offer this to.
Giving kids
other-
opportunities, but just
Right,
for the
but-
school district,
You know, there's certainly costs.
we're gonna have teams either way.
Associated with having these teams and.
There'll definitely be a cost.
I'm inclined to think of Rova, Knoxville, Monmouth, or Abingdon want to have a swim team, they should, you know, pursue it. I don't necessarily see how that's our burden or responsibility as taxpayers.
And that's a great point.
You know,
I
don't know. Unless there's a benefit to 205 that I'm not seeing.
I mean, there might be a state champ underneath the Galesburg name.
Well, it'd be taking, you know, again, opportunities from 205 students to fill those slots,
I don't know anything about swimming, but I think it's all about qualifying times,
right?
so.
And if one of those qualifying times beats out a 205 qualifying time, then that kid doesn't get to participate at the next level, correct?
potentially.
So,
I just feel as though our responsibility is to our local taxpayers
Not
and
to speak
students of this district.
dispassionately, because we want to make sure we're respectful of everybody. This is not an emergency on our part.
Right.
I mean, it's an emergency for people who don't have swimming.
And even if we were to do it, just because Rova, you know, suggested it first with the boys, we have other schools within the area that might also be interested in it.
Well,
So I would be hesitant just to be picking that school.
and it isn't that, definitely, that's just because of boys. Mr. Matthews was approached, put it nicely, by a parent from one of the other schools mentioned, because she had the mother had an expectation that we were gonna have her daughter swimming on the team here. And was very upset with us that we hadn't done it, which I'll be the first to say makes me more like, yeah, I don't wanna do it. Because if that's what you're gonna do when you come over here, I'm just borrowing trouble.
So you want guidance if we should move forward and invest all the time, correct?
Yeah, absolutely,
And legal fees.
and legal fees.
Eric, what do you think? I mean, you see the students every day.
As I told Ray, I said, I'm in the middle. I think it's, you know, it can be selfishly, maybe they're a good swimmer and it benefits Galesburg. I'm just speaking honestly. I don't want any more headache. And I dealt with this parent on the phone and I didn't sign up for that.
Robert, don't write that. That was, a parent who had strident opinions about something that ran counter to our opinion.
So, I mean, I see, I see both sides. It's just, it was something that Ray brought it to us to talk about.
What's Ray's position?
Well, I mean, I think Ray, just like any coach, would like to boost his numbers and to be competitive. And if or be more competitive, if there's an avenue there, I think he's gonna explore it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just, we're just in the beginning stages whether or not there's a direction to go. And if there isn't, then there isn't. And I told Ray that it may just stop tonight, and if it stops, then we just move forward with what we have. And that's okay.
The October 1st deadline, that is just for the 1920 season, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So, just for a little bit of clarity for the board, when we deal with these in other districts, usually these agreements take a long time to negotiate. That's because they're usually involving football and there's a massive fight over who gets how many home games. A little different with something like swimming. But your October deadline is for this school year, so you certainly have time to consider the issue. You just your deadline is if you want to do it for this year, and that's going to be an aggressive deadline to hit, realistically. Because it's not just your calendar, you've got another school board calendar to tie that in with. So I think realistically, there would need to be a special meeting somewhere along the way to get it done before October 1st.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Well, they're not, I mean, they're not simple agreements, as Dr. Asplund said. I mean, there are a lot of variables that have to be covered there, and then both boards have to sign off on it. So, there's a lot of moving pieces there. They're doable. I mean, there are districts that, I mean, we see them probably most often with football. Two districts that would have trouble fielding the football team on their own, but can go together and do it. That's maybe the most common that we run across, but they happen in other sports as well.
And we don't have any problems fielding a swimming team?
No.
Well, I'm a little uncomfortable starting to spend more legal fees without the other 2 or 3 board members here to discuss this as well. I would recommend we not look at it for the 1920 school year, but keep looking at it as a possibility.
I have a suggestion, that if another school district is so interested in doing it, why don't they give us their own agreement that they paid an attorney to write? And then we'll consider it, but until then, I would propose we do nothing.
They have to show the seriousness of their
interest.
I want to be a good neighbor and offer our facilities, but I'm on the same road you are. If that, I don't feel we should incur that. We're incurring expense of having the pool and all that. They need to incur the expense of the legal side of it.
Well, and if they are that interested, and there's a school district that's that motivated, and they want to draw out the paperwork, then I think we can look at it. But until then, I don't feel really good about us doing a lot of front-end work, and we don't even know if it would pass, because maybe they have some expectations that we're not even aware of.
There's another option. There's a lot of empty houses in Galesburg they can buy. The parents of such children can buy and live in the district. We have room in our schools, right? Yeah.
I'll pass that along.
Some nice houses. I'm looking at one tomorrow.
Any further discussion? Okay. Moving on, consider approval of press policies, first reading.
Yeah.
Need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I believe this went to a committee.
Yes, the policy committee reviewed this and made recommendations, which you have, and most of them were to approve as written, although there were some that were recommended alter in other ways depending on our own individual circumstances, although there was nothing in there that was massively different from what we're currently doing.
Do you have any questions or concerns about the policy change?
So on the one, I shared a concern with you earlier. On 2 of them, one was 2:30. 2:30. And it's talking about public participation in school board meetings, which I would love to see. But it's also an overall minimum of 30 minutes. I don't think we cap it currently at all. So it doesn't say there's a maximum though either. It just seems, I think our procedures are better than what they're even laying out here.
Right, but there's a difference between procedures and policies. And our procedures can be whatever they are. This is just saying the policy is referenced by the law below. Has to adhere to the law. That's why we suggest the policy. The policy is much broader. Our procedures limit people to a certain amount of time.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You had another one too.
Right. Well, I'm glad I found time to read these.
That was it.
Yeah, this operational, we brought all the activity counts in-house, right?
Correct.
And that all falls, what we're doing is within this policy.
Yes.
Okay. And I did have one other, and that was a term, I I didn't know what it meant. Where was that? I asked you once.
Was it in the sevens?
What's that? I left my notes.
In the will versus shall? Yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I left my notes.
It
on
was,
that.
oh, it was 7170. Thank you. Your question was about vandalism. There it is.
All right. School board will seek restitution from parents. Will. I mean, I'm concerned that we require ourselves to do that then. And in some cases, maybe we don't want to do that.
Well, and I
I'm
made,
not sure.
and my comment was, restitution does not necessarily have to mean money, dollars. It can mean time. If you had this happen, not here, but other places where we've had students spray paint things and make them clean it off. I mean, you know, they don't have to spend any money, but they gotta come back and clean it up. We do something so that the student can restore what they vandalized. And I think that's
Okay, so
I
will
personally
was-
would like to keep it the way it is. Because it's saying we will address, if we catch you vandalizing something, we're going to ask you to make it right. It does give us flexibility to say what that is.
Okay. As long as we don't limit ourselves in our actions.
I don't believe it does.
And the last question was that term. I asked you what it meant. What was that term?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, you said you didn't. Okay, thank you.
And we can just do voice votes since we're not.
All in favor?
Uh-huh.
Opposed?
Yeah. So next month we'll bring that back.
All right. Moving on to considering the distribution of employee code of professional excellence. The motion. So moved.
Second.
What this is, thank you, what this is a published, a lot of people would call it a handbook, but we prefer to call it an employee code of professional excellence. It is a compilation of all current, there are no changes, there's no additions, there's no subtractions, all current applicable contractual expectations, board policy expectations, or state and federal law expectations. And what we believe this will be is a benefit to our employees. We'll be passing these out, much more transparent. Our expectations will be laid out, and it's all based off of things that have already been approved by the board. So what we're really asking you to do tonight is just approve the distribution of this document that will be, we were supposed to have it, what? I believe that was actually tomorrow. That's actually, right? Based on the joke from earlier, but that's true. It's actually tomorrow, right? That we're
Yeah,
supposed to
really
get
is
the
tomorrow.
document. But as I said, it's just a recapitulation of things we've already approved, so there's nothing new in there. So we're just asking for your approval to distribute it to the staff. It's 9 o'clock.
It's after. Lights are late.
There we go. So, any questions?
This will be the document to be given to people?
That's just that's basically a summary, and this is your ability to sign that to say we're affirming that. This is,
Okay.
the
This isn't what's
document's
been given.
much longer, yeah.
We have a draft copy. I'll send everybody the staff guide. Once this gets approved tomorrow, the company that we're working with will take off the draft status, and then I'll forward you a copy.
Is this our HR people?
No, this is upslope out of Phoenix, Arizona.
Arizona. So they work with
You mix up
many
these
school
names.
districts throughout the nation, but particularly in Illinois. And so what they do is they take all the existing board policies, all the existing collective bargaining agreements, state statute, federal law, and then they tie them to these kind of employee codes, so that it's just combining all the things that we currently have just in one common place for reference.
All done by a machine, probably.
Probably. I hope it's done by a machine. It'll be done really well.
I think it's nice that everybody knows what their expectations are when you want to use the document.
So there's how long is this document the staff will be getting then? I'm sorry.
Tens of pages. I wouldn't want to get to a
Many.
number, but
I
tens
know.
of pages.
It's a big document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not hundreds, but tens of pages.
And they're gonna get paper copies of it, or just
We will
electronic?
get them electronically.
It's just an electronic link that'll be provided in our new employee intranet. So that is replacing the Red Book, which is, show your
You're
age,
familiar
you
with that.
know what the Red Book is.
Why is she talking about my age?
Back when you started.
That's inappropriate.
It was the black and white book, they didn't have color yet. But,
I said, you already had a motion?
we have a motion.
Any further discussion?
Lyon.
Yes.
Phelps.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sharpie.
Yes. Okay, moving on.
Sewer.
Need a motion to consider approval of the District 205 tentative budget. A motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's a PowerPoint. There it is.
Oh, dear.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna look at some numbers tonight for our tentative budget. Up on the screen, which I apologize, it's a little difficult to see, but we're gonna kind of go
Do
through.
we have this PowerPoint presentation? We don't.
I can forward it to you right after this, yes. We're gonna be looking at FY20 versus FY19 budget comparisons, and this is actually the amended FY19 numbers that we're looking at, which were passed back in May. So for the ed fund this year, in terms of revenue, we're looking at about $38.5 million versus $39 million that we had last year. Now, I will tell you, particularly where the federal grants are concerned, and even some of the state grants, we have not received final allocations or reallocations from those grants. So there probably isn't going to be a $500,000 difference, but there may be a couple hundred thousands that we're seeing. One grant, for instance, RLIS, which is Rural Low Income Schools Grant, was just released today. So we didn't have that allocation to put in here. We'll make that adjustment during this month for next month. And so you'll see these numbers kind of fluctuate a little bit in the next month as we kind of get those final grant numbers, hopefully from the state. In terms of expenses for FY20, we're looking at $38.1 million versus $37.4 from last year, and we're looking at an end of the year surplus of $381,561, less than we had last year, but we're figuring in 3% increases across all of our employee groups this year versus only one employee group last year. Operations and maintenance, this year for revenue, we're looking at 1.6 million. Last year we had about 2.2. That is a strategic spend down. We wanted to keep our tax rate through the levy last year level, and so we shifted some of those revenues to debt services so that we could cover those costs. For budgeted expenses, we're looking at about $2 million, and that is compared to $2.2 million in FY19. We are looking at a deficit spend, not a deficit in the fund, and we'll look at fund balances, but a deficit in revenue versus expenses for this year of $462,000. But we had a very comfortable reserve, and we're going to look at how those reserves are meeting our board goals as part of our board policy. So this isn't to alarm anyone, and you're going to see that we're doing very well where we want to be for our 180 days of cash on hand in our 2-to-1 ratio here in a moment.
Question?
Yes.
Transportation funds showing a negative 422 for proposed.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
We did not levy as much in the transportation fund, and then we're also being prorated additionally at the state level for this year. So the state has come back with a calculation. We're not getting our full 80% reimbursement from the state of Illinois on transportation.
Well, yeah, so what we mean by that, a full 80%, they take all your costs, qualifying costs, and the costs that don't qualify are field trip, athletic trips essentially. So all other costs of transportation, you get 80% of your costs, you're supposed to get reimbursed for that. Well, of that 80%, currently the state is prorating that at about 82% of the 80%. Okay? So when we talk about 100% funding, we're throwing around 80% a bunch, and everybody to understand. 100% funding means you get reimbursed for 80% of your cost, okay? But they're prorating that 80% of 82% of the 80%.
Kind of moving back up here to debt service, you're going to see that it's showing a deficit amount of $237,000. That was a strategic spend down. Debt services is one of the areas in which you cannot transfer money from debt services. So we knew what our costs were, and we need to spend down any reserves we have in there because it doesn't do us any good anywhere else. We can't spend that money anywhere else in debt services. So that allowed us to basically, in essence, levy the taxpayers less money by spending down some of those reserves that we have in that area. And then we have IMRF and Social Security. Once again, that is a strategic spend down. We had reserves in there. You cannot transfer those monies in between any other funds. So we might as well spend that down versus levying and keeping large fund balances in there that can't, in essence, be transferred to anything else. Our capital projects, these numbers, we really aren't deficit spending $16 million, but because we sold debt certificates, we're actually spending that money this year, so it shows up as a deficit. Working cash, we're not planning on tapping into any of that $20,000 in working cash. Tort, Tort, we had a fund balance in tort, and we need to spend down that tort. So tort is an as-needed levy. So we had a deficit of $1.1 million there. And fire prevention and safety, once again, that has to do with our health life safety bonds and our building projects. So those were monies that we had previously bonded. In terms of specific expenditures, obviously the Ed Fund is our biggest fund in terms of expenditures, where we pay the majority of our salaries and benefits. So this is just a breakdown from FY20 versus FY19 on our total salaries. So we have about $29 million in total salaries for FY20 versus $27.7 in FY19. Employee benefits have actually dropped a little, $2.6 million versus $3.2. Purchase services went up a little bit this year, about $400,000. Supplies and materials, they were up about $200,000. We're looking at purchasing some additional curriculum materials this year. Capital outlay dropped because we're not looking at purchasing large capital items. Those will be built into the building projects. So we saw a drop in that. Other objects dropped. That's kind of a catch-all. Non-capitalized equipment, that's about the same. We're looking at 101 last year, 98,000 this year. So for a total expenditure in the Ed Fund of $38 million versus $37.4 for last year.
Can you just go back to that one more
Sure.
time? And in terms of the salaries, it should show an increase there of what? 1.3 million, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And probably around 700,000 of that, or more than that, can be attributed to our coaches, right?
Our instructional coaches are a little over 600. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we saw a total increase in Ed Fund expenditures of only about 1.7%. So we were able to contain some costs in some other areas because our raises across, you know, those collective bargaining agreements and those other groups was 3% this year. So we were able to offset some costs in some other areas.
Okay, thank you.
Where are the employee benefits? Why is that lower?
I would have to look into those specific funds. It's probably the individuals that are actually taking insurance, taking advantage of those benefits. It's also, I'm guessing, moving certain individuals and certain groups out of federal grants, so we don't pay federal TRS for certain benefits.
Well, is a lot of that purchase service increase, is that based on like Russell and Leggett? I mean, those are purchase services.
Those aren't in the Ed Fund, though.
Oh, you're not taking any of that out of the Ed Fund
No.
purchase service?
No, we are not taking any of that.
So what would the increase in the purchase service?
So we had, for instance, certain curriculum contracts that would come out of that purchase services.
Edgewood?
Edgenuity was already paid for, I believe, in a 3-year license. Amplify was paid for last fiscal year. What else do we have this year? iReady Math would be, I'm trying to think what other.
James Webb.
I'm trying to think what other purchase services.
Well, we'll get a list
Yeah.
next for final budget. What's that?
Okay, all right, so moving on to the good news. So board policy 4:10 talks about our fiscal and business management, and there were 2 goals that the board has been working very hard on, really since 2015 and 16, when we had to go through large budget reductions, some very huge sacrifices district-wide. But this was basically the policy that guided the board. So we were looking at 2 different factors. First of all, we wanted to operate with 180 days of cash on hand. And then we also wanted to operate with a revenue to fund balance ratio of 2 to 1. And so we've been tracking our goals for the past year and a half. And looking at our first one, which is operating with 180 days of cash on hand. In our ed fund, we have met that goal. So our projected fund balance for 6/30 of 2020 is $20,620,361. Our 180-day cash on hand goal would be $19,070,916. To just give you a frame of reference, I looked up some numbers before the board meeting. This time, 4 years ago, our ed fund balance at the end of the 15-16 school year was projected to be $7.6 million. So the board has done an excellent job of being good stewards and getting this fund balance where we need it to be to meet those goals in 4:10. So congratulations, nice job. And then in operations and maintenance, we've also met the projected fund balance is $1,985,764. To meet the 180-day cash on hand, we need to be at $1,041,495. We've met that. 4 years ago, our O&M balance was at $1 million, is what was projected at the end of the 15-16 school year. So when Member Phelps asked about, you know, the deficit spending, these are strategic spend downs because we're definitely meeting our goals with these 2 board policies. And then transportation, our projected fund balance at the end of this fiscal year is $3,021,309. Our 180-day cash on hand goal is $1,081,566,000. So we've met that goal as well.
Well, I want to add another really important item that we undersell here a little bit. I just did some quick math on my phone, but I know I have my phone out, so I don't have a calculator with me. But that $20,620,000 projected fund balance in the education fund, if we conservatively say we're getting 2.5% investment return on that, that's around $515,000. And that would fund basically 8 teachers for the year. So when we start talking about making sure that we keep a healthy fund balance, one, it's just effective fiscal prudence, but at the other end of it as well, those investment returns do fund positions. They keep class sizes lower. They provide opportunities for kids. They make sure that we keep our programs steady. So these are really important things to do, not only just so that we're not having to wildly cut and add because the state's unpredictable, but it also provides an investment return that we should be doing a better job of quantifying and identifying what that money does.
Correct. And then once again, the end of 15-16 school year, the projected fund balance was $703,000 in transportation, and we're looking at potentially $3 million. So we're much healthier in our big 3 funds than we were 4 years ago, and all of those cost containment measures have worked, which is very positive. Then moving on to the second goal, which is an operating revenue to fund balance ratio of 2 to 1. In the education fund, we're looking at a fund balance goal of $19.2 million. So they do change a little bit from the previous slide. And we've met that because we're looking at a projected fund balance of $20,620,000. Operations and maintenance, we're looking at a projected fund balance of $1.9 million, and the 2-to-1 goal would be $810,000. And transportation, with a $3 million fund balance, the 2-to-1 ratio goal would be $870,000. So we need to just maintain this and continue to ensure that we are meeting these goals every month. Does anyone have any initial questions? And I will send these slides to you. Okay.
Well, in this to us, I think it would be appropriate to include it in some way so the public can see it. It wasn't a link on the, maybe, I don't know how you do that.
No, we
Keep
just
it
linked the
available.
budget, but I can link the PowerPoint as well.
I think it's very informative.
It's part of the 30 days of being on display for public review, so that would be very appropriate.
Well, thank you. That's good news.
You resolved, so you need to roll call.
Phelps,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yeah.
Sharpie,
Yes.
Lyon.
Yes.
Moving on, need a motion to consider approval of the resolution for the GAVC tentative budget.
Thank you, members, and member
Well,
bank.
we need a motion and a second first.
Oh, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, members, and member Banks, if you're at home, go Cardinals. Last night was a great game.
Stanford?
What's that?
Yes. Yeah, big Stanford Cardinal fan. Loves John Elway.
I am proposing a balanced budget for you guys once again this year with our GAVC budget. Your revenue line items shows here, I have shared this with you, of $566,004. Our revenue is always brought in by student tuition locally and from area schools. Our Perkins grant money this year is a little bit down. This is $56,287, and the other revenue sources are CTI grant, which is state grant money, and it's $84,964. So there's an increase in that, which is good. And trends are showing that there's going to continue to be increases in this funding as there's more push for vocational training across the country. And then you get down into the expenditure portion. We're seeing instruction at $432,267, support services $92,572, and then payments to other districts and government units, which is the Carl Sandburg College tuition reimbursement. Both equal out to $566,000. If we scroll down, you'll see at the bottom the breakdown of the expenditures as far as salaries and employee benefits, purchase services, supplies, materials, capital outlay, other projects. I will say that it's been pretty boring the last 3 years with this budget, but I think with some of the work that we're going to be looking at, 712 changes coming for the high school, some of this budget could change as far as more capital outlay items and some other things as we look at maybe new programming. We start to embark on that 712 building with more opportunities for vocational training for kids, and we reshape some of that. This budget could change in the near future. Questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison?
Rodriguez,
Yeah.
Sharpie,
Yes.
Lyon,
Yes.
Phelps.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, discussion regarding K-2 testing.
I will kick this off here. Thank you, President Schulte. Member Lyon had asked that we have a discussion regarding this. I asked Mrs. Springer to be prepared to discuss this item as well, so I will turn the microphone over to Member Lyon.
Well, I in my inbox today, I received a letter from a parent who had shared concerns about this. Hope people have a chance to read that. She said she had hoped to attend here, but she brought up some concerns that I think are concerns across the board. about the appropriateness of, first of all, screens for young children, the appropriateness of the amount of time taken out of instructional time, and the issue of what are we doing with this data. Is it valuable to inform curriculum? And does it give us good data? When I had concerns about this previously, I observed one class who the kids did a great job, teacher did a nice job, they had a lot of personnel in the class doing, assisting students as necessary, but it was a lousy test. I mean, it really fails one of our board policies because it says we're willing to use professional items, and I felt this was an amateur activity the students were asked to do because I was watching a math test for kindergartners, and they were being asked to read things. There's some of the items had little icons you can click on to get it to read to you, but some of them didn't, and expected kids to read. I mean, it was just a poor instrument. So I guess my concerns are we doing good things by our children? And even if we decide that we need the test at that level, which is suspect discussion, is the instrument we're using valuable enough to continue using? Those are my concerns. And I don't know, I don't have children in school. When I had children in school, they didn't start any testing till 3rd grade, standardized testing. I think it's a really good place to start. So other thoughts?
I think some of the concerns that were brought up too was using the computer to test the younger kids and the apprehension with younger students who are not familiar with computers, and has an ability to complete these tests. And I can kind of see that as well. I don't know. I guess one of my questions would be is, how much of this is mandated testing that we have to do from federal or state laws, and how much are we doing on our own?
I will tell you that we are not mandated to give the test K2. We are loosely mandated to give local assessments by the state. Now, I will say conservatively over the last 18 years, I know the state has always had a guideline that you are supposed to have a local assessment. I can tell you assuredly there are many districts that don't, and nothing happens to them. Is that a good reason, a bad reason? I don't know. I'm just telling you what reality is. But
well, there's the state requirement of a kindergarten test.
yes, there's a requirement
And we
to
do
do the
that.
kids assessment.
But it's
That's 40 days in measuring kindergarten readiness
Right.
skills.
and it's a not screen-based assessment, and it's
No.
an authentic assessment.
Right.
You're watching how children
right.
perform.
That is a different animal. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying one is an academic assessment, one's a readiness assessment.
And Member Lyon, I would agree with you in that I think we need to take a holistic view of the child. So I wouldn't suggest that any system we have in place is a perfect system. So I think that would be the other reason we have brought in Ames Web Plus this year, to see if that better meets our needs. And in the K1 level, it actually provides a stimulus that is pencil paper, or the student is able to look at something and respond to that versus interacting with a computer. Because we do have some students who come in and know how to operate a Chromebook successfully. And there are some 2-year-olds that I know are able to operate an iPhone. That right, wrong, or indifferent, we have kids at all various levels. So is the ability to use the technology impacting their achievement score? In some cases, quite possibly. We do allow them to use a touch screen in kindergarten. And then we hope to transition to the trackpad by the end of the school year. That's the goal, to be able to manipulate that. Because some students are actually using the computer during some reading stations where they can listen to a book read by someone. So they're getting the prosody of the language, they're hearing the inflection, they're hearing some of those pieces that a quality reader would, so that they can model those. So it's not that they don't have the exposure, but I would say in the beginning of the year, they don't have that exposure to technology, or at least an equitable exposure to that. I do think, like you mentioned, some authentic assessments as well, Member Lyon. I think it takes like a whole picture view of the system. There are some things like the kindergarten rubrics that we're putting out this year, the writing rubrics, the public speaking rubrics, that show developmentally where those students should be, right? And then if they're ready to move on, then we have pieces for them to move on. But we really would like to see some portfolio work. This is where I started in my writing continuum. This is where I'm at now. This is where I can show some of that growth, or this is where I know as a learner, this is where I'm at. So I'm hopeful in regards to the time concern as well, with the Ames Web probes, that those are roughly 2 minutes apiece. And in my opinion, as a former teacher, I would love to be able to give that short assessment, inform my instruction, and move on so that I can meet the needs of those students in a timely manner. And the principals are here as well that observe those assessments going on. There are a handful of kindergartners or first graders that take an exceptional amount of time. But I wouldn't say on the whole, that's a large amount of time.
In my mind, unless it's a good assessment, a minute's too much time. And if it's the value of the instrument I observed didn't merit a minute, because it didn't measure what it said it was meant to measure. It was a math test that was measuring reading. So right away, it's invalid.
And I understand your concern.
A minute is too much.
I understand your concern, but there are some students who may be actually able to read that depending on the adaptive ability. So if I'm a student who's capable of answering that question, perhaps a word problem or a story problem, if I'm able to complete that math based on the question I just was asked by the test or prompted, then I may have both of those skills together. I'm not disagreeing that.
But it's a math test. You're not measuring math.
Our state assessments require them to read the math test as well.
At kindergarten?
No, but as they get older, it's
Well,
still
but
that
that's-
same equity of nation.
But we're talking about a population that the expectation is they're not reading. The majority are not reading fully in context. So to say it's giving us more value, I don't see the value. It upsets me, as you can tell, that we're having this expectation for children when we know that not everyone is there, and we're setting up winners and losers at such a young age. And that's an unnecessary value. We should have instrumentation at that age that will inform instruction, not rate children.
Well, I was with you all the way to the end.
You don't have to be with me at all.
No, I'm just trying to follow you. So
I wish I'd have.
I want to push back against the notion of winners, because everybody's different. And if we're just talking about where a child is on the learning continuum, that makes them neither a winner nor a loser. That's just where they are. And we need to help inform the teacher and the student and the parent where
If we
the
can do that
child
in a
is.
minute, we should be doing it.
Well, I don't disagree with you at all. I just want to push back on being real careful about calling them winners and losers, because, you know, where one child could be very advanced in reading, maybe they're not advanced at all in math. Or maybe they're very advanced in addition, and they're not advanced in subtraction. Those go together, but, well, right. But
And I'm hopeful to alleviate some of these concerns with some of the curricular moves that we're making. And one of the programs that we're piloting is Ready Math. It does have something that is appropriate for kindergarten, first and second grade, and it will show them where they are on that continuum of learning. And it will break down the information. Like, I think it was Ms. Golden who expressed the idea that it breaks it down into 4 different strands. Is it their ability to work within 10 frames? Is it algebraic expression? Is it geometry and shapes and things like that? So the goals, the move we're making is to find the best instrument in the system of assessment. Because we do have to know where students are in order to take them where they need to go.
So what is a long-term plan from the curriculum office in terms of assessment? You're saying we're testing out something else, we're doing something else, and we're gonna have 3 things instead of 1 then? I'm confused.
No, actually what I would like to do is if Ames Web meets the need, like I think it will meet the need, I would like to go that route, and then we would not continue on with Scantron. I have not engaged in a multi-year contract with Scantron for that very reason. So that's where we are with that. And as far as the math program is concerned that we're piloting, I want to make sure, just like with any pilot, if it's something that the teachers find valuable and that we see a lot of student progress from that, that would be something I've already spoken with Mrs. Ham to make sure that that would even be something feasible moving forward before we were to pilot that. Because then that could take the place of that concern. So no, I would not adding assessments. We're being more efficient and effective with what we're doing. And actually preserving classroom time in the process.
How many students could be assessed with the Ames Web Plus this year with the pilot?
We have it purchased, so it would, all students. We piloted during the summer.
But for this school year, would it be possible, I'm not saying that we're gonna do it, would it be possible to eliminate the K-1 even, let's just say K-1, to eliminate the K-1 Scantron assessment in favor of Ames Web? Would that be possible?
It is absolutely possible.
When would be the absolute drop dead date that we would have to make that decision?
I would have to make that decision before the Scantron window opened, which would be next Monday. But we also have training provided on the 26th for all of the teachers that are going to be kind of like our former Scantron champs. Do you know how we rolled that out previously? So I would have interventionists that could go building by building to meet that K-1 need if necessary. We're able to be quick on our feet. I just wanted to make sure that we had the best thing in place.
Well, let me ask another question. So our Scantron windows are fall, winter, spring, for everybody that doesn't know that, okay? Would it be advantageous, or are there some huge risks to forego the fall benchmark period in Scantron for K-1 and replace it with Ames Web and have a comparison, because the teachers could
I would be fine with that.
see what they feel is more beneficial? Because we're not really losing much. We're only talking about winter to spring.
Right, and our window could be broad enough for Ames Web that we could still get a fall measure. So that's not a concern. I would like to utilize the fall measure for teachers, because in order to make some really positive instructional decisions, they really need to know where the students are. And so I think it would be in the students' best interest for us to have some knowledge of their initial abilities coming in. Because we, like Mr. Lyons said, we don't have that kindergarten kids measurement until 40 days in, and I think that's too late, far too late.
So what would you recommend we do now?
Well, I can meet with my interventionist team that I'm already having trained on the 26th as representatives. Did you say tomorrow? I'm not meeting with them tomorrow. No.
It's these lines.
Right. So I can meet with the interventionists and the folks that I have working on that rollout, and we can work on that.
Could we report out something by next month?
I will do my very best.
No, I need a yes or no. Could we report out something by next month?
Yes.
What kind of report could we generate?
Well, it depends on where I can get with the group. I mean, as far as the amount of testing time it's going to require, I think if I can get my interventionists right away, the ones that are going to be trained the trainers, because I think I mentioned this at the last board meeting, we didn't go ahead and just get regular training. I got trained the trainer, so we have the experts in-house. So those folks can go in and work with the kindergarten and first grade rooms on a rotational basis and get those students assessed. So I think we could have information there. I think we could actually have things in place and moving. And that would be the ideal opportunity. I just didn't want to pull the rug out from underneath my teachers' feet either, because this is assessment they know and they utilize that information along with other assessment components that we don't stand alone on Scantron. I hope people understand that. I would never stand on one test. So there are a lot of other factors that play into that for intervention and even enrichment and supporting advanced learning.
Is Ames a computer-based program, Jim?
For K-1, no, it is not. 2 through 12, yes.
The person providing the probe enters the information on the computer, but the student doesn't take.
They do it personally, teacher to kid.
Mm-hmm. Which is what we do with a lot of our other assessments in the kindergarten and first grade. We do a lot of student to teacher.
I mean, I have young kids, but we never had a problem with the Scantron. My children have never, a child, I guess. I have a kindergartner coming in, but my one that I have that is in this district never had a problem with the Scantron. But I'm sure there are kids that do. So I can't speak for ourselves.
Which is why we never use one assessment as our end-all be-all for making determinations, right?
Does this impact anyone who's currently like a kindergartner last year who's in the RTI, and I know we're shifting to MTSS system, does that impact?
They're both nationally normed. I would feel as though I could stand on the national percentile rankings for those.
As long as you use the same data sets within a year, it's fine.
Okay.
Because you're talking about a discrete period of time in that year.
So we wouldn't want to change data sets if we potentially put someone into tiered services?
If you started with one, you'd want to keep it. Whatever that one is, you'd want to start with that and keep it.
That would be my only concern.
Right. And this year, the plan was to, and it still is for the vast majority of our students, if they're below the 25th percentile on Scantron, we want to evaluate with Ames web probes to make sure that we have better information, especially since they're 2-minute, 4-minute probes. Why not get more information so that we can specifically focus on those needs that students have?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share my concerns and for the seriousness in which they've been taken.
And I feel as though they're going to, so are you stopping doing the Scantron? Is that what you're going to do? For the younger grade?
Just for K2 is what
Yes.
K1.
K1. I will hopefully bring you back some information in September.
We will do our best to bring back good information. If it's not good, we'll wait until October.
Seems reasonable. Okay, moving on then. I need a motion to consider approval of the personnel report.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns?
I wish we had all the positions filled.
Me too.
Sherby?
Yes.
Lyon?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yeah.
Moving on, a grievance update from Dr. Esty.
Thank you. We have one of our grievances that was not resolved at step 2 that went to arbitration that we just last week received. Actually, Luke did. So Luke, without any notice, you want to?
We have an arbitrator that's been assigned to the case. We do not have a hearing date scheduled yet. We're in process on that.
And just for everybody's knowledge, that is a grievance regarding the evaluation of a non-tenured teacher and the district's ability to terminate a non-tenured teacher. So that's the grievance stand. And then the other grievance, which is also on evaluation of staff, is still somewhere at arbitration. We haven't heard anything. It's been filed. We don't know anything else. But those are the outstanding grievances at this time.
Okay. Almost wraps things up. Moving on to comments by the board. I'll start with Rodney.
So I've had a couple comments by parents of students for driver's ed program. So I'm asking if we could get some info on how we're handling I'm going to say backlog of not being able to get driver's ed to students on a timely manner, and how we're addressing it. It's a major concern for a lot of parents. In one situation, one child will be a junior, late in his junior year before he has through driver's ed to get a license. Another case, their freshman will be taking driver's ed. So I think valid points. I would like to see feedback on how we're handling it, what we're doing, how can we help. I know of 2 families that took their child through the summer to Peoria for driving school and things. So as we talked about co-oping for swim and taking care of our own, I think on this driver's ed thing we need to figure it out. We've got an issue here, I feel, and I'd like some more info how we can help it.
We'll provide that information next month.
Okay. Number 9.
Well, I'm glad we're moving forward in the building projects. I'm scared. I'm glad we found some savings, and because we need to put as many dollars as we can into our 712 complex, and every dollar saves, and the other project is available for that project. I'm glad we'll be able to tell Tiana we had a long meeting without her.
Thanks, Lori.
2 in a row.
And I guess school starts this week, huh?
Friday.
And I'm excited for all the teachers and students that it's going to happen. And lastly, did Lee really need to stay this whole time?
No.
No. He's being a good spirit.
Thank you. I'm excited. And who's this gentleman with you?
Matt.
Are you gonna be one of our project
Yeah,
site
I'm gonna
managers?
be the project engineer. This is his first board meeting, so I figured we'd stay here for the whole time.
So next time we'll see you, you'll be wearing a hard hat, right?
So long.
Absolutely.
We're excited. Tomorrow. Thank you.
Tomorrow. They make me wear one in the office.
Member Rodriguez?
I'm excited for the building plans, as Member Lyon is. The playground is nice. If you haven't drove by Lombard, please do. It looks really nice. Another thing is, Tiffany, thank you for working with us on the K-2 testing. I know it's not an easy job or decision to make, but listening to us, we really appreciate it. And one more thing is, Member Banks, we will miss you very much. I've known Vicki my whole life, so it was sad to see her go, but we will miss her.
Thank you. Well, in the name of expediency, to keep the meeting short, I don't have any.
No comments? Oh, come on, you're the last one.
Future agenda items.
Here we go.
We got one?
Yeah.
Any other? Nope. Future meeting date, September 16th at 7 p.m.
Maybe we'll have a full board.
Yeah, and just remember, that's the third Monday of September, but that's to stay in compliance with state law for our 30 days of public. Yeah, and that's the way it's always done for us here. The September meeting's always the third Monday. So just remember that is the one month where it's the third Monday, not the second Monday.
So this is your third year with us now?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, sure is.
Motion to adjourn?
Go ahead, use it, you wanted to. I so move.
Second?
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.